the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the board wants to provide, sorry, Joe, I kind of forgot.
Oh, you're good.
Get the head nod from you first.
I was ready.
Okay. The board wants to provide ample opportunity for public comment on matters that come before us. Your input is important. If you wish to address an item already on the agenda, we ask that you do so when that item comes up for discussion. If you have a comment on a matter not on the agenda, this is the time during our meeting for such comments. The board would like to remind everyone in attendance that to avoid violations of individual rights of privacy, a member of the public wishing to address the board during this time will not be allowed to make any comments about any student, staff member, or member of the general public. Does anyone wish to speak at this time? Nope. Okay. Moving on. Discussion items. Do we have any correspondence that way? Anything?
I do not.
Okay. First item of discussion, the high school baseball program.
Okay, so as you know, we have been talking about the potential of starting a high school baseball program. And I worked with Mr. Bowman, has put in a ton of time on this. There you are. Thank you for all your assistance. We got ideas from other clubs, other schools that have organized high school baseball and had many conversations with MHSA that were helpful. So we got an idea of what we think it would cost to start up a program in Townsend and then what ongoing costs would be after that. So that is on the first page where we're looking at costs. And some of those, beginning costs are, bats can be expensive, helmets, all of those components. The regular costs that would be annual that we have to consider are the coaching stipends, the umpire fees, and if you do make it to state, which is always fabulous, there is additional costs for hotel and travel and those kinds of things. It sounds like from what we learned, there's around 15 games per season for each high school. It's not a great printout, but I put a sample in here for reference of what East Helena's baseball schedule looked like last year, so we could get an idea of how many home games versus away games. And so that was good information. We also talked to them about which district we would potentially be in and how far we would have to travel. So trying to consider all of that, estimating fuel and travel was probably one of the most unknown numbers, hard to determine until we have a schedule and those different components. One of the biggest hurdles for schools to overcome when starting a high school baseball program is a field. So we were pretty excited that we have good fields here in Townsend that would work. And Mr. Bowman did the research on that. However, when we went to the city meeting, they talked about us making sure that we would be able to fit into the schedule on the local baseball fields that we have. And we just wanted to talk to them more about what that agreement would look like. Would we be responsible for maintenance? Is that already occurring? Those different components. We found out, and Mr. Bowman, maybe I'll turn it over to you if that's okay to explain the use of our current fields.
So currently we are using, with the youth program and the softball program, and we have to bring that up. Even though they didn't have teams this year, they still anticipate a possibility of 2 teams. So we don't want to use up their time slots out there at Connors Field. That's a field outside of town going out to the golf course. So when hammering through all that, we found it very difficult to find a time slot for practices. That being said, we we were able to talk through MHSA and finding game times is something that's be very easy because games would fall on Fridays, Saturdays. We can arrange it so that games on the road could happen on Tuesdays. I did some Tuesday games and then Friday, Saturday. 1-out games, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But sometimes that doesn't work with everybody's schedule. So there is a bit of a time slot for field time that creates an issue. That being said, through conversations with MHSA, I think Scott was his name from MHSA, his conversation was all the schools have these same problems, the ones that are playing now. Great thing about baseball is you can do a lot of things and most practices happen not on a baseball field. You can get hitting done in a cage, you can go play in just a park. You know, you can do grounders and do some drills and things that allow you to not have a field to practice on. And there were schools, he said and he didn't give any examples, but there were schools out there this last year that had the same issue. Not much field time, still wanted to play, and they made it work. And that was kind of, I think, ultimately the big conversation with the guy from the MHSA about that. The field time is a little bit, is difficult to have. Once you start penciling out all the groups that are playing right now, it leaves a couple sections open, but it's very minimal. That's still assuming girls softball has 2 teams. So.
I did also reach out to the Canyon Prairie Land Trust to see if there was any potential for grant consideration to establish more fields for the community. And they said it's something that could be considered, but there are already quite a few things in the works for them. And a big part of it to them is how many community members are going to be able to utilize that. So it needs to be definitely highly sponsored and wanted by the community, and in order for the Canyon Prairie Land Trust to come in and support development of a baseball field, something like that. And that is a huge barrier if, for communities that don't have a field at all to be able to, would keep a program from being able to occur. So it's something that could be worked around. As Mr. Bowman said, we would have to find a practice location where the other kind of practice could occur and someone willing to let the school utilize that land. The ongoing expenses are estimated to be around $18,000 a year annually after the startup of the program. So thinking that startup would cost around $10,000 and from then on around $18,000 to have a baseball team. Scott Wilson is in charge of baseball with MHSA. This year, they are accepting applications until January 1st if you're wanting to play this spring. Next year, that deadline might change. Usually, we have to let them know if we're going to have a sport for the following year by the spring. So and I know that Mr. Bowman and many of you would like to know sooner rather than later. So the hope is to make a decision, not only on this year. I think the board has mainly been considering not this year, but the following year, if we were going to be able to make something like this happen. So did get a firm deadline from him. And there have been some folks that have come forward and offered to help with the startup costs. Approximately $7,000 has been pledged so far. I think the ongoing costs could be a challenge. I think that, if this is something everyone's really passionate about, we can overcome it, make it happen. We can work to raise money. There is also the conversation of it competing with other spring sports and what that will do to track and golf. So those are points that have been presented. And those are the facts and the dollar amounts that we had for you and wanted to share tonight. So I'll turn it over to questions and And back to you, Mr. Chair.
I guess, is there any questions or further information that the board feels they need in this process, I guess, to start?
Do you have $18,000 to spend? I mean, really, that's the first question. I don't know if the budget has that flexibility at this point, for sure, for the 24 spring.
Correct.
Mhm.
I mean, that's really tight, you know that.
Yeah, no, we've been talking about budget, and that's, a little, just to clarify things to the public, we've been talking about, a tight budget, not having money, and, we're operating under a balanced budget. We have the money to operate the budget that the board approved. It's all the new things, the extra things that have been proposed in the last, 4 to 5 months, be it baseball, be it safety, all those things. That when we start talking, we don't have money, that's what we're referring to, is the extra money for things that weren't in the current budget. So just to clarify that, not that, the bank, or not that the district's running a negative budget. We're not gonna get to the end of the year and not have enough money to pay the bills. But if we start tacking on things like some of the proposals that have been put forth, yes, that's where we would get into trouble. As far as information for me, when I went to the city meeting with Mr. Bowman and Ms. Hedlund, they requested that we go back and ask that question about the scheduling. In my mind, we still need to go back to the city and get a commitment from them that they are willing to allow us to do that before we as a board can still move forward. So I think that is another step I think that has to happen, is to go back with the information that you gathered about the scheduling. Because in my mind, we still need a commitment from the city that says, yes, the school district is going to be able to do that. Yeah, the ongoing costs of adding another program are, in my mind, the biggest struggle that the district faces. All of the things that we've been talking about and, trying to pay teachers, competitive wages, attract teachers to Townsend, increase programs that benefit student education. All those things we compete with the same dollars. And it's a struggle for me to say that we need to add another spring sport with those dollars, and knowing that the budget, whether it's this year, whether it's next year, it's still going to be tight. School budgets are never going to get in a situation where we feel like we have extra money. But again, before we move forward and bring this back as an actual action item, if that's what we're going to get to, I guess I want to make sure that we've gotten all the questions answered. So I guess that's what I'm looking for tonight. If there's any more questions or information that needs to be gathered.
I think the, information gathered that we have so many students interested was definitely something that kept this conversation going. That's why it's still on the agenda tonight. Our students, wanting to do this, and we know that our extracurriculars and students being engaged and involved, go hand in hand with academics and them doing well in school as well. And we're excited that many students were interested, and that's why we're having this conversation and seeing what the hurdles are, if we can overcome them, and what we can do. So just want to make note that we did have a fair amount of students, over 20, that showed interest in the sport. I do know that as an athletic, we have a part-time athletic director, and I know that's, more on his plate as well. We might have to look at what that looks like in the spring for Ms. Heverin and Mr. Odell and I. During any high school, any sport, we need to have an administrator present. So we would be dividing and conquering between track, baseball, golf, and those. So
If you can't add to it, do you take away? from spring and switch? Is another question. I mean, I don't want to kill any spring sports, but if we've got that much level of interest from students, I hate to tell them no, and we don't have that level of interest in the current activities we currently offer.
That's a good question. I know there's some information in here that Casey pulled together that was requested on
Yes,
how much other sports are costing us, so.
Right, yeah, that's what I was looking at. Like golf costs us $2,300 per student. We had 8 students 2 years ago. I mean, if that's where we're at, why are we catering to 8 and now we have 20 that would be interested? I don't want to kill anything. At the same time, if we can't do everything, then it seems like if we're taking away interest from students, that's not a good place to be either.
And I don't know if, a baseball program would attract students from Three Forks or other surrounding schools that don't, aren't able to offer baseball. I don't know anything like that. What that would look like for enrollment, A and B, student numbers. I know there's co-op opportunities too, which Mr. Bowman and I talked about looking into, and seeing if there was any opportunities, but the only programs near us, or the only schools that we know of near us that are looking at baseball have pretty well established programs on their own already. So
Because it's like East Helena was gonna add, that was a new one, right?
They did that.
East Helena did add baseball.
Mr. Bowman, when you look at that, I guess that practice situation that you described, have you thought that out as to far as where you would go in those instances?
I haven't finalized any thought process. I play in my mind where we could play, where we could practice, the city park, out the fairgrounds, which of course those things need approval from those. People we could, somebody's field.
I was gonna say, I have an arena, just right there.
I mean, it's really, once you get into that idea, if we can flatten some earth and call that good, it's really not that much effort to at least get practice. Place where you can hit grounders, field some grounders, throw to a base, do some running. Most of the hitting that the kids would do, or all the hitting the kids would do, would happen inside of a cage. So you don't need that much space for it. You need a cage, which we price that out to, ends up being about $1,400 when things come through with a cage. And I say that because we just bought one for the youth baseball program. So those are those numbers we're coming up with on that. I think that's right, wasn't that right, Bill? I think that's right number. So right about 1,400. Yeah, so I kind of hit a spot there of like, well, we could go looking and go asking. But I think we're kind of at that, we need to know, I think there's a lot of opportunities. I don't think that's what's slowing us down. And even like the conversation with the city, right now, we would be using the park as games, the baseball field as games. Basically be the conversation, the main field there be used just for games. So the city wanted us to check on whether or not the scheduling was gonna work, and it doesn't. And that's what I'll tell them. You're right. There's a couple things I didn't quite know, and when I talked to the other members of the youth baseball program, they're like, yeah, it's pretty tough. There's not a lot of room, not as much room out at Connors. That being said, there was room for Friday, Saturdays for games, because youth baseball doesn't do Friday, Saturdays. So there's room for games down there. Is there any more upkeep from the city for that? Absolutely not. It's the same amount of upkeep as we have for normal youth baseball, which is literally put on the coaches to take care of the fields.
So at this
So-
point, Gary, that's what the conversation with the city would be then is, would you allow us to use this field for games,
For
right?
games.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be the conversation with the city, because no, we don't have room to practice there, now we gotta go find a place to practice. Can we find a place to practice? What's that?
You'd have to modify that field.
Yeah, a little bit, yep, move home plate out, but talking with the guy, Scott, he says not all fields are up to tournament code. When we go play at other places, we see that same concept. So we'll have to move a little bit of stuff around, but it's no more than we're gonna move anyways over there.
Scott Wilson did say that they were being flexible with the baseball fields as well as it was within reason.
the requirements.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of the thought process of do we have a place to go practice yet? No. Do I believe we would have one? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we could get there. But
Is there a way that the school board can vote on it, yes, but not throw any money on it? I know the military does it all the time, right? We'll vote for a program, yeah, we're gonna do X program, yeah, we're just not gonna fund it, right? Can you do that leverage with the school board? Say, hey, we wanna give the go-ahead to do the high school baseball thing and give them till 20, whatever you guys said it was gonna be, 2025 to figure out where we're gonna be.
Well, we can't do it tonight,
No, and I understand that, I guess,
but I guess
in future ops, right?
I'm gonna say, because no matter how we look at it, it's gonna require some school district funds, one way or the other. So I don't think we can approve something until the board decides that they're willing to do that.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
So approving something saying, if we have the money, I think just puts the board in a bad spot, or puts the district in a bad spot. So the district needs to be committed to funding the program if they're gonna move forward.
Can you get them on the high school
I
schedule?
should stop for just a minute.
Okay.
I do need everybody to state their name, so that we can get it in the minutes, please.
So, John Wiley. You get that, Dave?
And then if you do have a comment, if you don't mind coming up to the podium, we do have Chase Reagan online, so that way he could hear you. If you could come up to the podium if you have public comment. If you're turning it over to
Yes.
public comment.
Okay, yeah, I'll
Feel
just
free
briefly.
to come in and grab chairs.
No, you're all right.
Come on in, guys.
I do, I appreciate those of you that are here. And I don't want to make you all come back 2 or 3 times. I know some of you have been here. But if you are here tonight and you have a comment, something that will help us, I don't need all of you to just stand up, we want baseball, please support baseball. I get that while you're here. But if you do have something you really want to bring to our attention, I do ask, yes, please step forward.
Okay. Leanne Bowman. Is there any way we can get them on the high school schedule to play, even if the parents have to take them, just to get them playing? To keep them playing?
I would have to check. I don't know that we can,
I assume they have to be a part of a program. Maybe I'm confused what you're asking.
I
Try
think
again.
she's saying even if we don't provide the transportation.
Transportation, I mean, these kids have been playing, it's not like they don't, I mean, I realize the equipment and all that, with these guys, they have most of their equipment. So, I mean, I realize that bats and all that, these kids all have bats.
In order to compete, my thoughts are, in order to compete, we'd have to have a program established and registered with MHSA.
And I understand that, and I understand
Yeah.
that's a problem, that's why I'm saying, is there a way that we can, and until everything can get figured out, is there any way we can get them on a schedule so that they can play? That's my question.
I don't know.
you state your name.
Yeah.
Did.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Name's Bill Duty. Couple questions. Okay, high school administrator has to be at each game, right?
Mhm.
Now, does that have to be a member of the high school, the teacher, or can there be a trained person that could act as an administrator? Something maybe to look at. The other thing, as far as fields, out when we built Connors and the other fields, okay, out here by Connors, there's designated areas out there for another complete baseball field. All it is putting equipment out there and leveling the spot. And you're 2 years out. You got a lot of time to work. There's your answer for your field. And if your fields are overcrowding down here, move all your T-ball down to the skate park because they don't need backstops or anything. But there's also parking there and like that. But that's another avenue that you could look at. You've got all the land that you need out there, especially now that the golf course isn't going to put in another 9 holes. You've got 100 acres or more out there that, and there's the field that was designated to go right alongside of Connors, right over in that corner. And so you've got all the field. I think I'm not sure if the city has control of that or if that went back to the county, I'm not sure. But that could be a doable thing. That was put in way back when that was built, when we built Connors. But the other thing, it's just like with an administrator, that would take, if you had a private individual that was interested in, that's gonna be going to these games and stuff like that, and got trained on what he's supposed to do as an administrator, why not look at that? That's gonna cut your costs down greatly. Thank you.
I think we're highly trained, though. Highly. Not just anybody can show up.
So does that mean you're volunteering?
Yeah, Brad's on.
I think Bill would.
Didn't you say that Connors, didn't we figure that out, was county? Was that the one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's county because it's outside city limits. I think.
Mhm.
I'd take a few minutes of your time if I could. So first off, I want to thank the board for John Wiley again. I want to thank the board for taking this up. As you can see with the youth sitting here, it's extremely important to them, right? And I know Gary and Bill and I are extremely passionate about it. We've been a part of the Townsend Youth Baseball for a long time, and we've seen our program internally grow over 57% in the last 3 years, which tells us a couple things about the community, right? It tells us we're building a base, but more importantly, we're bringing and we're attracting younger families with children to come into this. And although I believe that we might not start baseball next year, I wholeheartedly think that we will have a high school baseball program because I think the need is there. And I think the desire is there for our youth and certainly for those 163 kids that are already in our Townsend Youth program to be able to come up to that level, I think is extremely important. But the other thing I will say to that is this, and I know my former military counterpart will understand this as well. We don't want to rush to failure on this, right? I mean, we owe it to these kids not to have to bring their own equipment to this. We owe it to these kids to be able to put a solid program together and then just let them do what they do, which is compete. And we got a great group of kids around here that can compete. Our Babe Ruth program does extremely well. Our majors program wins in the top 3 every time we do our programs and stuff. So I think that's a reflection on the community, but more importantly, our kids that are willing to put in the effort, right? But in order for them to put in the effort, like Gary said, they need to have a place to do it. Is it conducive to hit baseballs out into somebody's farming field? Probably not, right? But we could certainly do that. The A answer would be what we've decided to do with Townsend Youth Baseball is submit a proposal to the Parks and Rec Department for 10 acres. Either out on Kent Lane or out next to the golf course, part of that 168 acres that Bill talked about. And for that, it allows 2 things. It allows us for that 9 acres to put 3 baseball fields on there. It takes 3.5 acres just to build a high school baseball field. And that's important to know because you're also going to need some parking out there, right? But what we've been able to do with that is we've been able to submit that program, and as a 501c3, which is Townsend Youth Baseball, we're still going to continue with that path, along that path to be able to do that. Is it going to cost us or the city, or excuse me, the county anymore to build a Babe Ruth, or excuse me, a high school field versus a Babe Ruth field? No, all it is a couple extra feet from left field, center field, and right field. So for us to be able to do that, we would certainly be willing to do that if or when that time comes. But, we would like to know that there's gonna be a commitment sometime from the board, right? To be able to do that. We're still gonna move along with us because for us and for Townsend baseball, I think it's important for our kids to have that ability to grow into that. But more importantly, as a community, we wanna be able to host tournaments, right? We want to be able to do that because that brings income into the community and it gets our community the recognition that it wholeheartedly deserves. And if we don't have those additional baseball fields, it's going to be hard for us to do that. So we're still going to continue to work towards that. And I just want to say that I appreciate everybody's time on this. And I really think that if the school board gives the nod, 2025 we'll have something for sure. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I got a question on our budget. How much do we have contingency funds for the year that are not committed over?
I mean, the budget approved was, that every dollar was committed to the dollars that we had available to us. So I would say there's zero contingency.
I thought there was like a school mines or something like that that can be used for things that were unplanned over.
Yes, that is correct. There are funds outside of the A and B budget. But once those funds, those funds would not be wisely spent to go to a program that has continuing costs, because that money is, once that money is spent, it's not replaced, with the new fiscal year with what we get from the state. So that those dollars are, one-time expenses, one-time fees, rainy day, the boiler blew up, those types of things. So using those funds to commit to a program that's going to have continually ongoing costs would not be a wise decision, in my mind.
Okay, thank you for that. Just for my sake, because it's a little bit tougher to see who's there, can I just see, have everyone stand up who's in support of baseball?
There's some around the corner too.
Come on in.
Does that help, Jason?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Stand up, man.
Come on, Ed, you anti-baseball?
Come on.
My standpoint is that we have some do outs. We have some refinements, some key questions to answer as far as just how to pull this off, not regarding the budget. And that really falls on Mr. Bowman and Mr. Bliley, and Mr. Duty to help figure out those challenges. And I think from the board standpoint, from my standpoint on the board, is our job is to figure out how to fund this program, because I've always been a proponent of supporting the kids. And my story is when I was a junior in high school, I was in Mason seat, Colby seat over there, and wanting to start up a boys golf team. And the board supported us, and the next year we took third in state. So I'm an advocate for the kids and the kids program, and there's evidently already a good program in Townsend. I guess I'm committing to you. I'm going to try and figure out how to get this thing funded so that the remaining board members can feel comfortable moving forward. But I would ask that we have some refinements to do on the other end, figure out the fielding practices, those kind of things. And I think with the support and the interest, I have a confident feeling that we'll be able to figure that out forward.
Okay, thank you.
Bill Moody again. I got one more question. That is, can you, if you got the city to say yes, and the board says yes, then as a group, we can move forward. Right now, everything's just stalemated, nobody can move anywhere. But if you did that, now, and not use, can you use money raised, donated money to put a bunch of this stuff together to help alleviate the school? Like if you had, an industry donated money toward it, that money could go to that. It wouldn't use any school funds. Can you do that? But the biggest thing is you have to have an answer from the city and also here, because without the word yes, there's no sense talking to anybody. But if you can do that, there's enough interest that I think there's money out there that doesn't even affect you guys' budget. And that can be put to use. You're talking, a couple of years out, see where it goes, but you have to have that one word. So, thank you.
So a partial answer to that is, of course, school finance, school funding is an extremely complicated thing. Using donated funds, grant funds, to get programs started, buying equipment, I think those types of things are completely legitimate. It's the ongoing costs of, paying salaries, paying transportation, and people donating money towards that can get complicated because you get into the equity thing. People start looking at, well, why is the school able to take money to this program and not to this program? So that it does get complicated. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it does get complicated. And my fear with when we look at things with donated funds, grant funds, some of those things, everybody's on board to do it for the first year, or maybe even the first 2 years. And then the novelty of it or something else comes up, and all of a sudden now they don't want to donate those funds to it. Now the school has established a program. Now we've hired coaches and we're on this. It falls back on us to sustain it in the long term. So those are my concerns. Not saying none of it makes it yes, no. Those are just my concerns. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. We will, I guess, find a way to get the last couple answers that I think the board needs, and whether that is a sit-down budget discussion and try and, anticipate, next year's budget and truly plug, some of these numbers into a projection as best we could, I think is at least one requirement that I see. I still think we need a commitment from the city that says, can we play games there starting, in my mind in 2025. And if they say yes, then I think we come back and the board decides whether they're going to move forward or not.
Yeah, I think
Those are the things I think we need to see.
I agree. We can do more work on the budget. We talked about it at our admin team today, what costs we have for educational programs that we need to plan for next year. And we, have been very careful with grant or one-time funding dollars, like the COVID dollars, to put that into our building and not hire teachers, for example. And that's why we didn't end up in a situation that other districts did where, they weren't able to continue paying for things after the ESSER funds went away, those kinds of things. So we're, being fiscally cautious about those things. However, we do understand that our job is to find solutions and solve problems, and we get, this one pot of money, and then we have to figure out, priorities and where it's spent. And, most of it's spent on salaries. So then we come down to supplies and different items like that. Athletics, are a big chunk of that. And I appreciate your comment because I understood, I believe you were stating, that parents maybe would be willing to help out with transportation, which is a big cost of our athletic programs. So understand that, but also agree with Mr. Wiley that we need to be able to fund it appropriately and really have pride in a program if we're going to offer it. So I look forward to sitting down with the board and crunching numbers if that's what we need to do, and see where we're at and what we can do, as well as, we do have programs that raise quite a bit of money to help with their uniforms. The Booster Club helps out with different things a lot. And some of our current programs raise money for, new goalpost pads or different things like that. So that is an option. So yeah, it seems to me like we have a few more components. I think going back to the city, like you said, is important next step, and we'll keep working on it, and appreciate everyone's love for the game and for showing up tonight.
I also took a few notes just so that you guys know, and I'll work with Mr. Odell to see if we can answer some of these questions about like MHSA and the different things as far as those components and the question. These are good questions. I'm writing notes, so we'll go back to that, see what we can find out too, so from answers on stuff like that. Okay.
Is it necessary to put a December item as an action item on this, so we can at least say not for 24, if that's where we need to be? I don't want to keep dragging this out and then we get to January, oh, we ran out of time.
I agree.
It needs to be like, you need to decide that 2024, not gonna happen. And again, it's clearly not an action now. It has to be the December item, but I don't want to keep dragging this out to the point where we're stalling the process.
No, I agree.
And in 2024, based off of the other discussion, I really don't think it's gonna happen, but I want to make that a formal record vote that it's not gonna happen, and that we look to 25 with all the level of interest, that this is pretty passionate. I mean, I could care, I don't have a dog in this fight at all. I'm very much like Chase. I'm for the students. If the students are that passionate about it, we have that level of interest, who are we to hold them back? So that's where I'm at with it. And I don't like just putting it off, because these guys came last meeting, they're here again this meeting, and we're just putting it off again to December. I don't want to do that. I mean, we have to, but that was my request even for this tonight, was make a decision for 24. So it looks like we're in December for making that decision, but we can't keep stalling the process.
I guess the only comment I had is more directed to the students that came in today. Don't feel like coming in tonight and not getting an answer was a waste of your time. Clearly, all of us in this room have seen the passion you guys have. Keep standing up for what you want to do. Okay, we see it. We see you guys coming in here. It's worth all your time. So it's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go back, to the comment Mr. Bliley made, I don't wanna rush into it and not do it right. So from my point, I just gotta make sure that we have all the questions answered and that we can sustain this long-term before we start down that path. Okay, thank you. Moving on, School Resource Officer Partnership, Broadwater County Sheriff's Office.
Yes, I know that,
Yes, you're welcome to leave if you would like.
all right, Sheriff Browser, I know you have to get going, and I appreciate you being here tonight. And so I'm gonna ask you to jump right in with me. Sheriff Browser and I met today to follow up again, and I put out, he approved the information I put in the parent letter that is posted. Is the new parent letter posted yet? It will be posted shortly. All right. So we put an update about school safety information together in a letter for families today, and had a great conversation. We're on the same page, just working on next steps for implementing a school resource officer if the board agrees to do so. So we are working on obtaining a MOA, memorandum of understanding between the school district and the sheriff's department. Ms. Heverin helped us get some examples from neighboring districts that we're looking at. And We talked about trainings and critical roles that the school resource officer would play with us, play in part as that collaboration with us. So if you want to talk before you have to run, I'll turn it over to you.
So, Nick Rouser. I am in the middle of working with the commissioners to get the position in my budget. I told them hopefully by the end of December that'll be done. There's really no reason it won't be in there. We had a good conversation today about kind of when I'm hoping maybe I'd be able to get somebody in there for the start of the second semester. There's some school resource officer training for law enforcement that I would send them to next summer. You know, they'd be in that. We talked about possibility of, well, what was that, the threat assessment?
Yeah, so we have a threat assessment team. We've been trying to expand. We currently only have one person on staff, our school psychologist, that's trained in the threat assessment interviewing process, conducting the formal threat assessments. And we would really appreciate law enforcement on that team, as well as hope to get some administration and others trained, so that we have a full threat assessment team. And so that would be a really helpful role for the school resource officer to support us in.
Yeah, so that was some of the stuff we talked about, getting that individual would be on that threat assessment team, trying to get things started like DARE. Obviously, I just don't want them wandering around school all day, bored out of their mind. I want them interacting with kids, interacting with staff, you know, staying busy, creating relationships with kids, making sure kids are safe, walking around, driving around during lunch, before school. We're trying to figure out the whole vaping problem. Trying to just, you know, just work through the process. You know, we'll add a few things into that. I'll try to get a couple more example MOUs and stuff here in the next week or two. And like I said, I have the money and I will have the money in my budget to fund it. So we'll just wait on, obviously, your guys' approval and then some kind of commitment in the future, obviously, as we just talked about with money that's just not always just sitting there. So I'm good with waiting for that for a little bit.
So our goal is to bring a very detailed plan of what that agreement looks like, what the roles and duties of the SRO would be, so that there's not a gray area, so that's clearly defined. Obviously, there's a difference between a behavior issue that teachers or we as administrators need to handle, or law enforcement would be appropriate to participate in. So having all that very clearly outlined is really important when you're bringing in an SRO. As Sheriff Rouser said, there's the trainings and billings this summer for them, and we would be excited to get them on the school safety team and threat assessment team, and help with the substance abuse, you know, conversations and lessons in the middle school and high school, and some of the vaping issues that is our current largest issue. So we understand that we need to fully define those aspects, and then once again, grant funding can be risky, but I do know that there's some other school safety items that we're going to be talking about tonight that we will have the opportunity to write in for a safety grant this spring. As we looked at, I know we've talked about the STOP grant, and I've worked on that at the congressional level as well, which also funds school resource officers, and we'd be able to apply for that this spring. So hopefully we could participate financially as well as providing an office. But initially the board would be committing with kind of the in-kind participation, or, you know, financial support of providing an office and materials and training costs. We could pay for training because we have professional development funds already appropriated. So.
If you're open up for questions.
Go ahead.
What kind of timeline are you looking at, Nick? I know you say in the future, I don't want to leave you hanging. I want to go in with a commitment saying, all right, the school in 3 years will fund the position, or 5 years. I don't want to commit us, but I also don't want to put you up for failure and you fight for this position to benefit the district, and then your person who you've trained and put effort into and time into, and then in 2 years is no longer funded because we didn't hold up our end of the bargain, you know?
So I think that's something, it's important to me. This is one of my big things that I think we need somebody in there. So it's important enough to me to where right now those aren't really even a worry for me. I don't really have a set timeline, and I'm not looking for the school to ever fund this 100%. Just so you know, I'm just looking for something that we can come up with to show your commitment to this, that we could use for like training, you know, some equipment if we needed it, say the SRO needs a new laptop or, you know, something, I don't know, this is just off the top of my head, that we'd be able to just use that money for that. So I am not looking forward or for the school to fund this ever at 100%. I'm not even thinking 50%. I don't even know if I'm at 25% because that's how important it is to me. So I'm gonna have the money and to start it, and I will have the money to maintain it. So it's not something that here in a year or, you know, a year and a half, you guys are, if we're still trying to figure it out, that I'm gonna be, oh shoot, I ran out of money.
Right.
So I wouldn't even step into that, or I wouldn't even offer if I didn't have the money to just fund it 100%. I just think we can have some kind of conversations to figure out some kind of commitment from you guys. You know, and everywhere's different. I reached out to Gallatin County, I talked to Sheriff Dan Springer. They don't commit anything, the schools don't commit anything monetarily to the sheriff's office because they have a whole bunch of little one-room schoolhouses all over in Gallatin County, and they can't afford, you know, so the sheriff's office just funds it. I talked to Leo Dutton in Lewis and Clark County, the schools do commit some money to them. So it's kind of hard. There's nothing that's the same everywhere, so.
The principals I talked to today was very similar. It was
Yeah.
some yes, some no, and some didn't have SROs, some had them and they're not there anymore. Just because of funding was actually one of the major reasons. I was able to get one MOU from Ennis, and I know Big Timber and Boulder used to have one, Jefferson did, but that kind of went imploded. I don't know what all is happening there, but they at least have some samples and stuff. But yeah, it was all over the place as well, so.
Because when you look at it, ultimately the taxpayers are paying for it, whether it's
This pocket or.
through, yeah, it's just where it's coming from, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the taxpayers are the ones that are gonna be footing that bill. I will have the money, obviously, hopefully our next mill levy, you know, we have to talk about that here in a couple of years, work out, but hopefully things like this will help ensure that.
And yeah, we're very fortunate. We're very thankful for the partnership we currently have. We have a lot of collaboration and a lot of presence from you, more than other school districts, at least that I know of. I mean, you guys are here on the daily already anyway, so this would just make it formal. And I believe that providing office space, providing technology, training, all of those things. We've already been collaborating. Your department has been at some of our school safety trainings so that we're all on the same page. And I think that that's just incredible that we're all working together in that way. So I think it's just another step in the right direction. Look forward to it.
And maybe when I hear what you're saying too, and we've talked obviously too, is that the commitment part is more of that you want it to be efficient and effective and whatever personnel to be actually utilized in whatever capacity we decide on. So that education piece, that
Yeah,
involvement piece, that
I just don't,
partnership more than just a body there.
I just don't want
Right,
a deputy walking the hallways.
right.
That it's not,
That's not what it's.
the daily basis, you know, we talked today about behavioral problems, you know, little Timmy in second grade that, you know, we're not gonna go in there and scare the kid. You know, throwing a pencil or something, you know, we're more gonna be for criminal actions that happen within the school, and they do happen. You know, we have assaults that happen here, obviously substance issues. There's the traffic around the school, you know, that'd be another part of it. They'd be able to one day go drive around there and stop some people or walk around and try to show a presence or, maybe try to get things like the DARE program started, work on presentations if they have to, the safety team, the threat assessment, and I'm sure there's gonna be more things coming up that would add to kind of things they would do there will be days where they probably just walk around and talk to them. But I think those are good things too, because that's kind of what I do in the morning. And I can already tell it's made a huge difference with some of the kids I see every morning, so.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the things you talked about, the MOU, a job description, I think we just need to have both parties, the expectations outlined. So that when it does happen, if it does happen, everybody, gets and we accomplish the goals that both parties set out.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I think we need to see as a board is kind of those items that, you two have collaborated on, or you as the admin have collaborated on, so that everybody knows what they're getting, what they're agreeing to, and so that we can meet the expectations for both parties.
Yep, and once again, just like we discussed, when we had the students in here just now for baseball, I know that this is something that Ms. Heverin feels like we have a need for at this time. And, not only in the high school, but could benefit the entire district, so.
So Sheriff, I just want to make sure, are you looking for a commitment right now just to keep moving the ball forward?
No, I'm not looking for any answer from you guys tonight. I know when it comes to money and budgets, I understand how that works. So I'm just here just for the update, just kind of let everyone know kind of where we're at with it, and that we've been still moving forward with everything. And
from my standpoint, I fully support. I want you to know that conditioned on an approved MOU, and that will spell out basically all the expectations and whatnot. So I think that's probably our next step. Am I correct, Susie? Over.
Yes, we wanted to update you on the progress we've made and let you know that Sherry and I, as well as Sheriff Rouser, have been looking at other models and those documents that we need to bring to the table. And then I know that Sheriff Rouser is waiting for the official approval for the position.
yeah, and that it's
To
kind
some
of like, it's kind of like
degree.
you gotta get in front of the commissioners. I don't see any hang up in the process of it. I just have to formally get it approved through the commissioner. So, and basically, as long as I have the money in the budget, will be fine with it. I've already talked to them, so it's just gonna be waiting on the county has hired a new chief financial officer. I sat down with him. He's gonna write up a proposal for me, I guess. And then we will take it to the commission and they'll probably vote on it that day, so.
Do you know when that would happen, Nick? I'm just looking at for bringing it back to the board so that we can get that MOU signed and decision can be made.
No, I'm hoping that this is done by at least the middle of December. So maybe around the first of January or something, we can get the MOU signed and have job description, and then that person would start maybe the second semester when they get back from, or around the second semester, I'd be able to get them in there.
Should be mid-January, it'll be close to the board.
So
Yeah, so
hopefully
we'll-
we'd have an MOU drafted or, be able to present an MOU to the board during the January meeting.
Okay.
It's the timeline that we were discussing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Really, thank you for your willingness to support as is, but then also your willingness to dedicate and take somebody off the highway and put them into the district. Thank you for your willingness to do that.
Yep, the kids' safety is one of my big priorities, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, the Townsend School District Community Radio, basically this will just be a quick recap on our meeting the other night.
Yeah, we had a community meeting on our radio station the other night and just want to thank everyone that came and shared their points of view. Right now where we're at is that the radio station is costing the district over $9,000 a year. and it's not being utilized a lot for educational purposes or those kinds of things. There are other options for broadcasting sports at this point that are less expensive. However, we understand that, and wanted to gain information on the importance of the radio station to the community. So that's why we held the community meeting. We are doing a survey. That was kind of the next step that came out of the community meeting. I know that Luke Carr has already drafted a survey. We're working together on fine tuning some of the questions. That'll go out to see who's listening to the radio, why it's important to them, what they're, is it that great music on there? Is it the sports broadcasting? What would be beneficial to, how could we use the radio in a more efficient way, make it more productive? Are businesses and community organizations interested in participating with the radio to make it financially sustainable for the district so that it's not coming at a cost? So when we look at things like tonight, we're talking about $9,000. That's half of what, would cost the baseball program to run a year, for an example. So we need to think about that. And if we're going to continue with the radio, have support from community organizations and or businesses. But, we're continuing the radio at this point and trying to get a clear picture of that. And we had a lot of great attendance, and just want to thank the commissioners and everyone else that came to be part of that conversation.
You said Luke's developing the survey?
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be an online survey?
Yes.
Even though we're not using online for podcasts and
Yes, we're doing a Google survey. We are also going to have, hard copies that people can come into the community library to fill out. And we're going to share all of that information and even encourage people to call in if they'd like, or, mail in the information. We'll put it in the paper. We'll put it on the radio.
Make it as accessible as possible.
We will try to get the word out. Yes.
Okay, any other questions, comments on that? Okay, moving on, consent action.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
could I ask that we move up the safety item next? I have a few members that showed up here. They have to leave here in about 10 minutes. So I wanted to give them an opportunity to speak over.
All we have to do is approve the minutes and warrants. I think should go fast. So.
Okay.
Is there a motion on the minutes and warrants?
I'll move to approve the minutes and warrants as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes and warrants as presented. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Action items. Approve additional school playground safety proposal. Susan.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm gonna open up to a few that have showed up.
Actually, I'm gonna let Susie start first, please. If she's got some things.
Yeah, I just briefly, before we get going, wanted, and I can save some of it for the end, but I did want to give a quick overview. So we did meet as a school safety team, and we do have a lot of things in place to make sure that our building is safe and secure. So we are working on, we have a cybersecurity draft, we have our EOP, umbrella document complete, and we're working on the appendices. We are working on the SRO plan. We're working on communications plans. I can go into more detail on our quotes and our different options on communication plans later so that your folks have time to talk. We do have another Knox box coming for the other side of the building since it's so far now with the new building. So we're going to install another Knox box for Sheriff Rouser and Ed Schindel with the fire department to access in case of needs. We're all wearing our badges at school, and you will be expected to wear something if you enter. We're keeping our doors secure, not propping. We've got more library safety components put in place. And as far as the playground safety goes, we did approve the fence being extended, so the fence is going to be taller. All of that's in the works. We're just waiting for them to show up and perform that work. And I know that Daniel told me he was following up on that.
I reached out to them yesterday, I haven't heard back, but I know they were looking at probably no sooner than December. And with the warmer weather, it's kind of one of those that works well for them to do work when it's cold, because there's not gonna be any concrete work for that, so.
Okay,
But I did reach out to them, and I'll make sure the board knows,
Okay.
and you as well, Susie.
so we did extend the fence height. And the next components that I know you are proposing, Chase, have different components such as the canta blocks, the flower pot arrangements, and many different components. Did you want to just give people a chance to talk about those each, or do you want me to run through those? How did you envision this next step going?
I'd like to open it up for the folks that came here to speak first, and then I'll take everyone through the changes and updates, and how they're addressing concerns over.
Thank you.
I'll go first, I gotta get going. Nick Rouser, I know Mr. Reagan asked me to come today, so I don't know if you guys have any questions directly for me, or if you do, Chase.
So Sheriff, just basically, again, we know we heard from you in 3 months. I just feel like the board needs to hear from you as our sheriff, your concerns with what we have right now.
So obviously, the short fence was a major concern of mine, so it sounds like that got fixed. Obviously, I know we've had one of the other conversations about people possibly driving a car through that fence. You know, I think there needs to be some kind of a barrier out there, whether it's the big rocks, concrete of some sort. I guess I'm not the building expert or something on that to make that decision. I also think there should be some more concealment of some sort. You know, you look out there and there's those shrubs out there that are maybe 12 inches high, and it's gonna take probably 15 years for those things to grow. You know, we've had several cases over the years of people, I'll just say people, that aren't supposed to be on the school grounds, and they're out there walking up and down the old fence line over there on North Pine along the playground. Kids are out playing. These are people that should have no business at the moment necessarily being around them, making comments maybe that we kind of know about, maybe that weren't supposed to even be on school property to begin with. And they're out there walking up and down. They can see the kids, they can talk to the kids. Another major concern of mine is, over the years, I know of at least one, and I can think there's probably been a couple more, where parents are not, you have two parents that are divorced, or, you know, and those get really nasty. And unfortunately, the kids are the pawns that they use. And they will, you know, the court may order one parent to have full custody or whatever, however it works. Parenting plans get very confusing. The staff at school gets a copy of those, and they know how confusing they are. But I can think of one case here, it was a couple years ago, where a parent was not supposed to have a kid. The parent actually showed up and tried to take the kid from the school. You know, so I think if there's some sort of, to keep people away from the kids. And obviously you always have the back of your mind, somebody bringing violence to school. I've heard the case, or I've heard it in the past, I've heard it recently, you know, it's Townsend. Oh, that'll never happen. I've always in my life been prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Since I was very young, that's just kind of how I've always operated. I'm sure that people in Uvalde, Parkland, Sandy Hook probably made those same comments. So until it happens, or something bad happens, I mean, you can always say it'll never happen until it does. And I think that, you know, any way you can possibly prepare for something like that or any bad situation, obviously you can't prevent everything. You never know what's going to happen, if anything ever will. You know, I was just watching something the other day about some guy running around stabbing a bunch of people. I mean, violence can come in all sorts, shapes and sizes. And it could be a car, it could be a gun, it could be, you know, who knows. But I mean, I worry about parents or people who are not supposed to be around the kids, you know, coming to the fence. The taller fence is going to help with that. You know, they won't be able to just grab somebody and pull them over. And then obviously it'll help with kids from, I know what I would have done when I was in school. I would jump the fence when I shot a basketball over there. Just went out and grabbed it and jumped back over, hoping that the teachers didn't see. So I can imagine that there's some kids there that have either done it or are not afraid to do it. So
I saw you shoot, so.
what's that?
And I saw you shoot, so
Oh,
it
yeah.
probably was gonna happen.
Yeah. Good chance of that.
Yes. Oh, goodness.
So I guess real quick before you leave, you know, the one thing that I guess I get a little confused on in the things that you brought up is the concealment part, but also the need for, say, our playground aides to be able to see who's out there and see who's coming for those parents. And if you Google school safety and priorities and risks, the first item that comes up on just about every one is line of sight and visibility. Like they want to be able to see the threat coming. They want to be able to see who's out there. So I guess I keep struggling with, we keep talking about adding concealment and yet it almost goes backwards too. So just real quick.
And that's, ultimately, you guys are gonna have to make that decision. This is not my decision to make. I'm a out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, I mean, I know from my understanding, the reason the playground was built the way it was to help with some of those, because it's, you know, now covered 3 sides from the school. You still have that out there. I think that something could go, I'm not saying cover it completely. I think you can still have a line of sight and you could have some bigger shrubs that at least go up 3 or 4 feet. You know, I think the barrier out there between the rocks and the fence, you know, you got the sidewalk that's like, I don't know, 10 feet away from the fence, you know, I think that helps, you know, and you can still see out there. You know, I don't know. I don't know if there's a solution to that. I'm not an expert in school safety. I'm not going to claim to be when it comes to those kinds of things. Ultimately, you guys are going to be the ones that make that. I don't want to tell you what to do, so.
Thank you. Any other?
It is very conflicting. I know you got to go. One last thing I just want to say and make sure that our message is on the same page. All of us have been putting a lot of thought into this, and I know the board's been very supportive of us over the last few years in our work on school safety. And like my lanyard here is from the National Western Joint Threat Assessment Training, where we got to learn from survivors of the school shootings and those officers and different folks that were on duty and hear firsthand their experiences. We all know that it can happen. We don't believe it won't happen here. And we do want to be as prepared as possible. And that's why we are excited about collaborating with you all of the time. And we have been working on all of these safety documents and working as a safety team at the school. So I just want to make sure that we do understand that it was alarming, a lot of the things we learned and have heard over the last couple of years. And we wrote grants to be able to attend those safety meetings, which we'd love to include your staff in as SROs or here as, as we have in the past, and continue doing that work together because, we do, not believe that we're, we love that we're in a great, lovely community, but we don't believe that we're isolated from these incidents either. So
Yeah.
we need to be
I'm not
prepared.
saying I heard it from you guys either, so.
Yeah.
I hear it from Alan.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I mean, everybody, it's a lovely community, just like tonight. It's
Yeah.
like, we want to make baseball happen. Look at all the people that come together. We're very blessed with our community, but we are very aware that we need to be prepared and plan and work with you and our other emergency services in case of any anything that could occur. Like you and I talked about today, flooding is one of our major, and the emergency planning should be to prevent, all kinds of threats. Like flooding is one of our major ones. And then with our train that goes right through town, that presents a real risk for our area. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time. And
Yep. And to elaborate a little bit on that, what you asked, you look out there, I think there's 2 doors on that playground that can be opened from the outside.
2 gates.
No, the
Door
doors
from the
into the
building.
school.
Yeah, actually.
I think there's a lot of doors, but only 2 of them, I think, actually have a fob. Is that,
Only two,
Only
and
two.
they're opposite sides.
so something that worries me, obviously, if you got a bunch of kids out there, somebody with wrong intention shows up, you got a bunch of little kids
Getting them in the doors.
sitting there like a shooting ducks. And it's gonna be absolute chaos. And most people in the moment of chaos, you have flight or fight. I would say most people, it's flight. So you're gonna have little kids running, you're gonna have a couple paras trying to get, I can't even imagine. And then you got 2 doors with them trying to go in. So, I can't imagine trying to get, I don't know how many kids are out there at once. Trying to get all those kids or as many of them as you can inside through those doors. So that way, I look at it, if there was a little bit of like, they can't really, you can't see necessarily out, you may get a couple extra seconds of trying to get more kids in there. I don't know. I personally don't like the fact there's only 2 doors with fobs to go in over there when there's, there's gotta be 5 doors maybe around the inside over there that a lot of them you can go out, you just can't go in. So, and they're the ones over to the junior high and the ones just right on the edge of the building right here, so.
that's a good point, something we can take a look at for sure.
Definitely.
That's not something that
That's an easy
has been
fix.
caught by our, we did bring in Homeland Security and the U of M Safe Schools to do inspections, but our playground wasn't finished when the U of M team came in to assess for safety. And I don't know that,
So you obviously, you could open the rolling door. The problem with that is you open that, now you get that closed, if, somebody could easily run and just run through that by the time it's closing, I don't.
I know
But
we,
that's just kind of when I look at like the concealment, if it was some trees and maybe some little taller bushes or something out there than that.
So Sheriff, hate to use you as a prop, but I just want to point something out. So that podium is 4.5 feet tall. So let's say the sheriff is a bad guy. The top of the landscape block is going to be 4 foot tall, so it's another 6 inches below there. If the sheriff was a bad guy, can you see him coming?
Not if he's crouching.
Can you see him coming right now? Yes. Keep in mind there's spacing between the landscaping block formations in addition to it, right? So you also have that. Now, let's say the sheriff or the kids on the playground, an act of violence occurs and we're the bad guys. Now, Sheriff, you could just take a knee for us.
Could what?
Take a knee for us.
My knees hurt.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff, you come up. So you can see the value, and that's what Travis Reagan tried to explain when he was here 3 months ago, a person that's been in that experience and who's out there working day in and day out with our kids every day, is the value that even something 4 foot tall or even 3 foot tall will give our kids if something bad happens, they hit the deck, they have cover, they have concealment. So I want you to keep that in mind as we work our way through the rest of these exhibits. Sheriff, I appreciate your time very much for coming in.
Yep, thank
I'll
you.
do push-ups for you later for using as a prop.
Yeah, that's all right.
Have a good night. Thank you.
And I think we have a couple other members here in the community that want to speak over.
I'll just share my thoughts real quick. So, my name is Emily Christensen, and I have 2 kids in elementary, and I'm also the PTA president. So, we talked with Chase a little bit the other day about this plan, and we're here to advocate, obviously, for the safety of the children, just like you guys. And so anything that we can do to protect our kids, I fully support. And I just appreciate hearing our officer's opinion, because I feel like obviously he's the professional, and those that are, and you guys, and those that are out on the playground, they kind of know the situation, they know the needs there. And so I appreciate their opinions and thoughts. And yeah, we're just here to kind of advocate. I talked to a para today, and she also brought up the concern about the key fob, because teachers, you can only go through that same door. And when I said at the school, it's a little bit frustrating. And I know it is with some of the teachers. One teacher told me she got locked out, and it was really concerned for her. She couldn't get back into the building. Maybe she left her key fob, but they just said it's really hard to get kids in and out because you have to go to those two doors. And I asked why, and they said, well, I think it's just too expensive. But I think those kind of things should be a priority, to figure out if we can make more access for the kids to get in and out, to protect our kids. So that's just my thoughts.
Thank you.
Emily?
I will, real quick. I didn't plan on it, but I'm Becky Hunt, and I actually work part-time as a para. So the key fob is a huge issue. So only those two outside doors have fobs that you can get in. There's like 3 or 4 other doors that are concealed, that if there was an issue, we could get, like, where the undercover areas, and then we have like those short walls. You could get a ton of kids behind those walls and into those doors if there was a fob there. There's no fobs. So you're stuck on the outside corners, and they're exposed. Even with a 4-foot wall, you're not gonna get half of them in if you're lucky. So I think we really should look into more fobs.
So it's not even a matter of programming, they're not set
They're not
up.
there. There are no fobs.
Okay.
So have you been to the playground at all? Have you been there? Okay, yeah, so the ones leading into like the 2nd grade hallway, and then into the middle school hallway, and that's it.
So I guess I'd like to address that, and, not arguing or anything, but, during the design phase of when we built that school system, and looking back, 4 years before we started that, and the difference between what we had and what we have now. The main component of that conversation was about controlled access and controlling where people could and couldn't come in. And so obviously money plays into the whole building project too, but that wasn't the reason that we didn't put fobs on every door. The point of those safety conversations was, you need to control where people can enter and not enter the building. And so that's the reason, I guess, that I would say that not every one of those doors has a fob on it, because we were trying to control the access where people can enter the building.
But unless you're an employee, you can't even get in without a fob regardless. So.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to tell you about how that conversation went and why, that decision was made to not have a fob on every door. As far as adding the fobs now, it would be a challenge, because obviously those fobs have to have electricity ran to them, and there's the data source and all that. So it's not as simple as just slapping.
I think it really needs to be looked into, though. I think it's very important.
No, I appreciate the comment.
I have another really quick thing. So like the elementary pickup, for parent pickup at the end of the day, for like the little kids, there's no, anybody can come pick them up. There's no like, hey, this person is approved to pick them up. So I also teacher sub. So when I'm a teacher sub, I don't have a list of who can pick those kids up. So I'm like, okay, so before I leave the classroom, I ask every student, like, who is picking you up today? Like, do you know who's picking you up? And I want to make sure they're going with who they're supposed to go with. We need more, like a list of approved people to pick those kids up. And then they need to be signing a sheet or something so that everybody knows who they can go with. Because like Sheriff Rouser said, like, parent disputes. I mean, hey, daddy comes to pick you up, and oh, there's my dad. And the kid goes with their dad, and later on, oh, dad's not supposed to get them. We don't have that as far as paras or substitutes, and I don't know if teachers have that as far as who is approved to pick those kids up on a daily basis. I think that's a big safety issue. So.
Yeah, I just, I agree. We have learned a lot about the doors and we have added more fobs, and we could continue.
I think one by the lunchroom in one of those concealed areas is a very smart decision to add one. Because like I said, the other two are fully exposed. Those two, you could get the kids behind those short walls and get them through those doors. And they're not exposed to the whole playground. So.
Yeah, that's something that we can look at. And I mean, through the construction process, we've learned a lot about, where the buzzers were put for, everything from where Allison's button at the front of the elementary school was put. I mean, it's a constant learning process, and it's fun. Like, we've had a couple of schools come and tour, and, we've already been able to tell them, oh, we would have done this, slightly different, and those kinds of things. So there are improvements we can make, and I appreciate you pointing those out. Mrs. Hartman and I have been working on, that's actually on my list. I didn't get there yet, that I said I was running through on what we're working on, but we are working on student dismissal. That was a big topic that we talked about at our school safety team meeting. And that's one of those areas where it's hard because it's kind of all or nothing, right? Like, do you go to, where the students have to show, the parents have to show their ID, and you have it checked off, that they're on the list. And, even when we started requiring people to stop at the front office and not just go into the school, we had, people get up in arms about that. Like, what do you mean I can't just go to my kid's classroom? So it's finding that. And in our community, everybody knew each other for so long, right? And now it's not that way anymore. We've grown a ton. We've got a lot of new people here. And even switching to making sure everybody had a background check if they're volunteering in any capacity. I mean, those are changes that we've needed to implement. And I think we're at the point we have agreed where we're looking at, dismissal as well now.
Yeah, because there's just a crowd of parents and people out there waiting for students. And we do man the gate. I mean, obviously we always have somebody out there, but
open it up and there they go.
well, yeah, they just, oh, there's dad over there. And there's no implement that this is like what we're supposed to do. Or like, oh, well, we're just supposed to let them go if they see their whoever, but like that can run into a dangerous situation.
Yeah, and it's a parent and community discussion as well. I mean, we have quite a few little ones that walk and ride their bikes from the school. And we have a lot of traffic going just a couple blocks down, right? And sometimes when I see these little ones walking down across Main Street and things, I'm like, oh my goodness, so yeah, it would have to be a shift.
Yeah, well, at least for those ones, the kids do walk. You can't help that. We live in a community where they can walk to and from school. For the ones that are getting picked up by somebody, that's what it is, by somebody. So that's a challenge. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
Carly Spreitzer. I was here in the summer, obviously, to talk with you guys about the fence, so I'm really happy that you guys went ahead and moved with the taller fence. Thank you. I guess just in hearing all the discussions, I wanted to bring up a thought. If we needed more concealment on the playground to be able to get in the doors, is there, capacity to add an additional wall to that longer piece of the enclave where it comes over? Since that is where one of the main doors are and the roll up, is that a section that maybe could have something added? I know, again, that's an additional cost, but that's an idea to add some more concealment to at least get them behind that wall as you're getting them in a door. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Back to you, Chase.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, I appreciate everyone coming in and taking the time out to speak their concerns. And again, circulating in the community, there are concerns So I believe it is our charge. Our number one priority is safety for the kids. Otherwise, baseball programs and bus stops and all that stuff is a moot point in time. So as we move forward, I've taken basically all the feedback I've gotten and tried to morph a plan that combines a lot of it, knowing, and we all have to acknowledge that everyone's gonna have a different idea. It's impossible to provide a solution that's going to achieve everyone's concerns 100%. So what I asked the board to move into this is with an open mind with that this is a compromise plan of all these conversations that have taken place. So with that said, I don't know, Joe, are you able to put up the pictures of that landscape block?
No, but everybody has board packets, or I think there's access to the board packets if anybody needs them.
Okay.
But he doesn't have the screen set up.
Okay, so the updates from last meeting, their first proposal was that the Conta landscape blocks were gonna be 10 feet wide. So there's concerns that those are too wide. So now this proposal are 6 foot wide. So they're not as big. They're still 4 foot tall for the reasons that I pointed out when the sheriff was up there. It'll still give you line of sight because there's spacing in between those blocks and they're 4 foot high. It'll give line of sight out there. But if something bad were to happen, if the kids had to hit the ground or take cover, they would have, in fact, cover by doing so. So that is the intent there. And to back up, and I think it's very critical that we all recognize that half a block away at Town Pump, we had a shooting, shots were fired to the ceiling on our block. That's a half block away, not a half a mile, but a half a block. Furthermore, in the last month, we had an incident happen in our school, which we can talk about. But that incident are significant indicators to how things like Sandy Hook happen. I mean, those are indicators, and they're happening right in our school. So again, to echo what the sheriff said, I've always operated under the mindset, you plan for the worst, hope for the best. Yeah, there's a 0.001 probability something terrible could happen, but if it does happen, we can at least say we've made it better. So back to the updates, and I actually took some pictures of what that Kenta block looks like for all of you, so you get an idea. The other update with bringing those to a 6 foot width is another board member had an idea of that bouncy wall, the one that's on there, to put it on that east side. And what that'll do, that'll give protection if you're driving from the east to the west on that road, that'll actually block that off, but at the same time, it will give purpose because that wall is used a lot with the kids just to play on, bounce balls off it, so on and so forth.
Chase,
now
if I can real quick though, where you've if I understand where you've drawn that wall in, that will now be outside of where the new fence is going to be.
Say again, you cut out there, Jason.
The fence will be right here.
Yeah, your
It'll be
proposal.
just inside of it, but
Oh, that's the wall.
this is the wall here, is
That
my
you
understanding, yeah.
Okay, and I was looking at that one.
No,
Okay.
that's the old fence. This is the
Disregard,
wall,
disregard.
but it's right up against that fence.
Okay.
And really that was, and Christina did a follow-up email, and she stated that she's not a proponent of a wall like that. She was thinking more of trees, boulders, those kind of things. If we went with trees, we definitely want to make them evergreen, just so that they're more full. The problem with boulders is to get ones that are 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide, those are $4,000 to $5,000 each. They're very, very expensive. So the concrete block is actually a cheaper method than that if we didn't want to put another concrete wall. There was another concern about if we put another concrete wall for the kids to play on. The current wall is being used kind of like as a volleyball net where they're tossing balls up and over it. So that would have to be monitored closely by the pairs to make sure that's not occurring. Otherwise, the balls are going to be going up and over the 6 foot fence that's going to be directly behind this wall. But again, that in my mind is I really want to get your guys' input on that wall. I could go either way with that wall, or like to see some evergreen trees, and maybe you can put a couple more of those landscape features over on that, out in the grass even, that's not on the playground, if you so choose. Before I turn over to you for your guys' input, I just want to reiterate that this is a compromise plan. And again, it does give line of sight with the height and the width. It does provide cover concealment for the kids on the playground if something were to occur. It is, in my opinion, who's been in a security environment across the pond, there's nothing that, when you're in that situation, it gives you great peace and comfort to be in a secure environment. I'm just telling you that from personal experience. And even though I hear you when you're saying all these reports about line of sight and whatnot, this plan does give you line of sight, but over there, line of sight is a far cry to having a perimeter security, okay? So for what that's worth, personal experience, my kids are out there, your kids are out there. I feel much more comfortable if we did something along this line. I think it is a compromise plan. It meets everyone's intent, 70 to 80%. We'll never get to 100% with all the thoughts that are out there. Now for your guys' feedback, over.
Are there 8 of these flower, or the Canta designs then? Is that the ovals on the picture here?
Yes, they're the ovals, and again, this isn't to scale. If the board moves to approve this, I'm gonna actually take this and I'm gonna pay for this out of my pocket to actually have a draftsman put this to scale for us, but I wanna just give you an idea. This is a close swag at it, because of when they're 6 foot width, it would take more of them to cover that perimeter than at the 10-foot length bowl.
Another question I have, Chase, is, was this still contingent on receiving that physical safety grant this spring, or were you wanting to move forward with this now? And what funding were you proposing?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Susie. No, this would be contingent on getting approved through the safety grant. And again, the idea is we roll it into, and the other thing that after we talk about this, I wanted to go in and get everyone's input on also adding those bullet resistant films to those windows on Pine Street as part of that grant as well. Over.
Make it happen, in my opinion. I am 100% in agreement in the public comment we got, as well as the proposal. I mean, and what you're working on with Christina, I appreciate that you're working on it. I just want to know, like, timeline and acceleration. Like, I don't want to keep going and then the end of the school year happens and we still haven't resolved the pickup issue. Like, I don't want to keep dragging that out. So how do we get to a place where either we apply for the grant, hope that these things can come through, that's one option. You could use your metal mines to build the infrastructure, like we talked about, one-time projects. I don't, my opinion is that I would way rather err on this side than do nothing. Because we've heard from staff, we've heard from parents, we've heard from other individuals as well that there's a problem, and the longer we continue to drag it out, the more risk we expose ourselves to. And to the students. I mean, it's not just the district, it's really, I mean, my kids are right there on the playground too. And I have concerns. They were in some of those classrooms facing the street. I had concerns then as well. So I don't want the other parents to have those same concerns.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, it's a brand new building and was built with that see-through design, and that's kind of the current design model for schools, and they are not doing bulletproof, on those windows. And they meet, and same with the playground. I mean, all of this had to go through safety, architectural. I had to meet all of the specs. And then not saying that makes it good enough for Townsend or the right fit for our community, but that's what's challenging to me is then going back and after the fact, figuring out what we need to do about that when we just purchased these things. Even putting the film that we put on Miss Hartman's windows so that she had a little bit more privacy for when she was meeting with parents in her corner office there was a huge process, because if we put certain kinds of films on the windows, we lose the warranty that we have with the company.
Yeah,
And
I'm not gonna, we don't need to go back and forth, and I don't wanna keep this constant like us versus them mentality. What I wanna do is address the problem. So in the U of M study in 2022, they identified that those classrooms being exposed were a problem. We talked about bullards back in May or some other time of trying to address stopping a car going through the side of the building into those classrooms, and we haven't done anything. That's what's frustrating to me. And so that's what I'm trying to get to. And I can understand we void the warranty on the windows. If that's the issue, okay, then let's put the concrete pillars right in front of the window. That provides some concealment and some protection, but we haven't done that yet. So what does it take to get action?
Coming to an
Well, we just need to make a motion and run with it. I mean, that's what we truly need to do.
But again, you're
So
asking
with
to
that-
make a motion and spend money on money that you don't have in the hopes that you're gonna get a grant. And that's a
No,
struggle.
it's
That's a
called,
struggle for me.
it's called a condition. I'll make a motion that we put these things in place as presented with the draftsman doing the official plans contingent on us getting approved for a grant. Over.
Chase, can I ask a couple questions for clarification on this?
It would require a second first. If
Sure.
somebody's going to.
Yeah, I'll second it. I just,
I don't know if there was a. Yeah, he said it was a motion. Yeah. So it's been moved and seconded to move ahead with the proposals as Chase presented them, contingent upon grant funding. Now, discussion.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm curious, I see dimensions on these. I think the flower bed structures for 6 is 6 wide or 6 long, 3 tall in the front, 4 tall in the back. I'm just trying to get a better idea of what this all would look like out here. Do you know what the dimension is from the fence through the gravel portion over to the sidewalk? What the intended depth of those flower beds would be and how far they would be away from that fence?
Chase, that question was to you, I believe.
Oh, sorry, I was sitting there talking and I had it on mute. Sorry about that.
It happens.
No, so I didn't bring those schematics with me, Daniel. I can email those to you when I get back home to Townsend. From my fragmented memory, I want to say it was 3 feet, 3.5 maybe away from the fence. And then on the front part, I mean, it was about a foot away from the sidewalk. And again, if you have feedback on what you would like to see there, and I take it to the draftsman, I could give him those, that feedback, see what it would look like over.
Chase, is that whole, is that something Clint Watson could do, his class, with their AutoCAD and all the drafting that they do. Might expedite the process a little bit, and I think they could crank it out fairly quickly.
Half price.
Great idea,
I
Brad.
agree,
Absolutely.
I agree 100%. I've seen their
We
work,
just
it's
renewed their
pretty good.
software in what, August?
So yeah, if you get a chance to talk to him, I think they could probably crank that out. It might help everybody
Expedite it.
looking at it a little bit, see what it looked like.
One other thought I had, this, I guess I wanted to agree with Christina on is, I had the same thoughts. I know you and I have talked a little bit. I like the idea of the wall out there. I think kids use it. They obviously use the other wall. My concern about this location is we just spent $10,000 to raise the fence because the ball's going over when they're getting thrown over by the basketball hoop. I just don't want to encourage that in another place. And I don't feel like it's fair to put something out there, one more thing for the parents to have to, specifically watch that wall and make sure the balls don't go out there. I like the idea of having one out there. I think it adds value. I don't know if that's the right location for it though.
You bet. Yeah, like I said, that was another thought from another board member to put that there. And with Christina's response, which I totally understand too, I think we could look at doing something different there. Again, the part I really like about that wall though is just from the security standpoint, what it gives. If you drive on that street from east to west, you can see that there is a need for something right there from that vantage point. So, yeah, that one I think we could probably work on, come up with a better solution, or we could look at some netting to put up above that. I mean, there's some other things forward.
I would agree with you, Daniel. I don't want to put that on the parents. They have to watch that too.
Enough.
Yeah, right. And Chase's proposal, what I was focused on is the Canta block piece. There's certainly a wall piece, there's a window film piece, there's a checkout student piece, there's other options that were discussed about walls and extensions to playground walls. I mean, those are, in my mind, also still in consideration, but right now I think, I don't know, Chase, what I understand your proposal to be is first and foremost Canta blocks. If that's acceptable, then we'll look at these other options too. But that's where I come at it from the comprehensive side of it, where I don't want to just keep doing one thing. So you made the playground more secure, but we opened the gate up at the end of the day and solved no issue on students leaving, that kind of stuff. So it's got to be more comprehensive than just.
Yeah, so his proposal encompasses the fence extension, which we did, the Canta block, the bouncy wall, the windows, and the gathering area with the curbs and the pause in the fence. Our comprehensive safety plan that our team has been working on. And I do feel like we've made great gains and progress on, especially in certain areas like staff training and different components. There are areas that, we still have work to do, of course. But that is part of the larger system, which I have more information to present. We just jumped into Chase's proposal, which pertained the Canta blocks, the wall, the windows, and the paving and the pause in the fence is what's on his proposal. Is that a correct summary?
Yeah, it sounds like, I guess I'd like to hear what the other board members say about the bullet resistance film on the windows, if that's something they want to move forward with this over.
I wasn't, and I want to clarify, I'm all for anything we can do for school safety. I think all of us are all on board with school safety. I wasn't saying anything negative. I just know it's a complex one. And on the proposal here, we don't have a dollar amount, and then just wanted to make note that we would have to talk to our construction team and all of that, just like we did when we put the film on Ms. Hartman's office, just the It's an in-depth conversation.
Right, but to Jason's point, it just seems like nothing's getting done. So if we make the motion to move forward with it, that's how we find out all this information. And once we have a dollar amount, we just put the dollar amount on the grant submission in the spring. We apply for it over.
Chase, on your can of block, that price, is that for each flower bed, or is that, you figure 10.5 is for all 8 of them? Or is that a piece?
So at the time, that was for the 10-foot ones. So basically I just put a little bit more contingency on there, because there would be a little bit more, there's a little bit more linear feet on the block. But again, I went to Three Forks and priced it out. I've actually laid that block before. It's fairly simple to do. The most labor intensive part is actually pouring the footings that the block goes on. You don't have to pour footings, but I've seen you don't. You use pea gravel. Sometimes if it doesn't have a good firm bed, it's better to have concrete footings on there. So to answer your question, that did increase a little bit, going to the 6-foot wide versus the 10-foot wide, because there's a little bit more on your feet involved.
Right, but my question is, that is per flower bed? Or is that for all
No.
8 of them?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jason. Yeah, no, it's for all of them. That price was.
I struggle to think that we can get that done for that, but anyway.
Right.
Okay.
Keep in mind, that's just that's the cost of the block. And that's, again, I wanted to get a good idea here. I canceled the appointment with the ABZ concrete gentleman. So again, once we move forward, we can firm up a lot of these things before we submit the application forward.
Anybody else want to go first?
I guess one thing, I appreciate the effort going into this. One thing the reason why I was asking for those dimensions is I'm a little concerned about putting up a 6-foot fence and, in my mind, building a brick ladder in front of it.
Me too.
3.5 feet away from the fence. I know I'm gonna watch one of my son's friends try to make that. I mean, just because that's what those kids will do. But outside of that, I wonder on the safety aspect of that, if having those out there like that does create an issue. If we're causing some issues there, I understand your thoughts. I think it goes without saying that obviously I'm a little bit more of the belief I don't like to have some of those site obstructions out there. I did openly take a look at this the other day. I went out, tried to picture what it looked like from the playground. Actually had Paris come up and ask me what I was doing out there because I'm just kind of wandering around staring off into space.
Good job, Paris.
Right. I did have a visitor pass on though.
Good.
And some of the concerns that was brought up to me is that they still, from time to time, a kid can slip through a gate when it's being opened or something, or if it's even on some of those gaps. Those kids are pretty small. And some of the concerns they had is if they got out there and there's this flower bed there, it'd be pretty easy for that kid to just duck behind that, and have they not had turned at the right time, they wouldn't have known that kid to sneak out. I know the chances are, we can argue the chances are, maybe not real high, but I think it's still a significant enough risk when I hear, oh, we had another kid run today, we had another kid climb today, and it's happened a few different times that I've heard, at least the last couple of weeks. So I guess I certainly would say I'm still a proponent for allowing those paras to be able to see. I understand the defensible space side of it, but I think there's a lot of defense to be had if you can see those threats or see if a kid does sneak out or some kind of risk. And I just don't want to create something that contradicts the fence that we agree to put on.
I understand, Daniel, what you're saying, and I appreciate your thoughts. The big difference is I'm not worried about kids climbing fences. I'm worried about a much more serious vulnerability that we have to deal with. I'm much more concerned with some indicators that are going on with our school. We have all the signs right here. Half a block away, we had shots fired in the ceiling. I'm concerned about something much, much more worse with a lower probability of what you're stating, because there's a high probability kids are gonna climb fences. But that's not my concern. My concern is protecting our kids from something much more grave over.
Vanessa, do you have any?
The 6 feet length concerns me as well. I would be concerned that if we're talking about using this for cover for kids, I don't know if there was any kid that even recognized what was happening, that kid would think, oh, I need to run towards the danger to have cover behind these things on the other side of the fence. So I don't know. I feel like those flower beds could be more used against us, or higher probability, I guess, especially at 6 feet long.
Yeah, I'd love to cut you off because I want to hear your other thoughts too, but I gotta jump in here because what Travis talked about 3 months ago is kids can be 30 feet away from the block and they hit the ground. A 4-foot high obstruction will still give them cover. They don't have to run towards the fence to get cover. If they hit the ground, they will be covered. Like where Jeremy's sitting back there, Jeremy Rice is, if he were to take 10 steps back and hit the ground, that podium would cover him just fine. They don't have to run up to it. That's what Travis Reagan was talking about. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all I had. I don't know. I think the wall would be a more natural. I don't even know what kids would hit the ground. I think they're going to be looking for something to hide behind, I would assume, or trying to get back inside like Becky was talking about. So I don't know.
So what do you propose, Vanessa?
I don't know. This is a hard conversation to have. I think the wall would better suit our needs, but then again, maybe it wouldn't. There's no way to tell for sure, so.
I really do like the volleyball net that's there now. I mean, that really adds a lot of help. I mean, i.e. concrete wall, but having a second one or something similar would be helpful. And then I would agree that they're going to run back to where they came from or try to get back into school. And if we can't get back into school, that's a problem. Like that's an easy $10,000, $20,000 fix. That if that's the threat you're trying to mitigate and you don't like the block, you could look at those kinds of options, just like I said. And I understand your access control point, Jason. That's primary as well, is trying to maintain access control, which is why we're going to a 6-foot fence, is that you can't have kids jumping fences. At the same time, if you open the gate and everybody just walks out to wherever they want, there's no access control. I mean, I pick up my kids from school and I see it all the time. They don't even check to see that I'm there. I don't even know that they're half the time walking up to me, but they're already released from school. So I think there's more areas to look at. But I also, I don't think of the active shooter situation as the primary concern with utilizing these blocks. I think it's stopping vehicles from going onto the playground. Stopping other traffic from getting through. And yes, the street runs this way, I get that. But it doesn't take much to try and run over a fence. And again, that's not even ill intended, right? Somebody has a medical issue and that causes that. I mean.
Yeah, it happened at an elementary school in Helena when I was teaching it for the Helena School District. Through the elementary fence, but that goes back to the conversation of how much line of sight do we want versus coverage, because that can be done with bollards or different things too.
We're thinking of it from an opposite viewpoint too. I definitely get all of the different sides of this, and, you know, we've had lots of people come in and talk to us, and everybody has a different, you know, viewpoint in camp. And, you know, Sheriff Rouser talked about, you know, line of sight and his view of that. We've had other professionals come in and say it's really important to see what's coming at you as well. My question would be if, you know, hey, I appreciate at least the efforts of being aesthetic and, you know, not putting up some god awful ugly thing that's just gonna feel like a compound. We don't want that, of course. We want it to still be welcome and pleasing. But I would worry that, I don't know, and maybe this isn't a worry. My mind goes to, you know, if you have all these big planters in place, does that actually offering more opportunity to hide and conceal somebody on the outside who has bad intentions to be able to hide from the people? I don't know. I don't know if that's, I mean, you could probably come up with 15 scenarios on either side of that, but that's one thing to maybe think about too. Are we actually offering more concealment? And if the goal is to stop a car from going through, there's a lot of other things that wouldn't be quite as large that you could not drive through or over, or landscaping is one of them. I mean, just bigger or more substantial, you know, and that would actually provide some cover too. I don't know. I'm sure we can come up with a million conversations and discussions on either side of it. It is a difficult topic. Vanessa's right. There's so many viewpoints and.
Yeah, we brought in multiple experts and they gave multiple points of
I
view.
know.
Nobody wants to be liable.
Yeah,
Even
Well, and I think they're all-
security,
yeah.
this is a recommendation. We're not gonna take the
Right.
risk. That's on you.
I think they're all looking at
That's
it from.
exactly what it boils down to.
Yeah, they're also looking at from whatever their specialty is, or their, you know, what they're looking at too. So yeah, I know, it's difficult. That was just my food for thought. I would be concerned about that.
Yeah,
I
Mike.
appreciate everyone's comments. I think in the end of the day, we have to default to our local experts. And, you know, Sheriff Rouser 3 months ago, he wanted a wall all the way across. And again, this is a compromise. And again, I just implore the board to think, if you're on the fence right now, unintended,
No more fences.
that you just trust with what our local subject matter experts would like to do. This is better than what it is now. Okay, and again, that's what I ask you just to consider is, if you're on the fence, just trust what they're saying. Trust the community members that showed up here that have concerns. It's hard to get up and speak for a lot of them. I can tell their voices are shaking. You go out in the community when it's easy for people to talk, people are talking and they're expecting this board to do something about that thing. Over.
I did like one idea that Nick had kind of mentioned tonight about vehicle access control. And I thought it could help is with, he mentioned that we do have those larger boulders and yeah, they're not 4 foot, but most of the vehicles can get hung up on those 2 foot boulders. And he mentioned even if that's, that could be an option. I think it kind of prevents some of the site obstruction issues that, threats being able to hide there, but I think it also. Did we just lose it?
We did.
Oh.
Remember that battery issue I talked about earlier? 83%. I'll be back.
I think that's an option to consider for keeping vehicles out
I'll
of
put
there.
it on speakerphone first.
So is this motion just to move forward, or are we
I think it was, the motion was to approve contingent of the grant.
I just lost connection.
I have you on speakerphone while we get you reconnected real quick, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vanessa, I think from my perspective, it's just to move forward. I mean, yes, there's a can't-a-block price and an estimate, but we don't have estimates on the items listed on the proposal, so I don't know that it's hard for me to say it's a complete proposal. This is what we're doing, this is the price. It's more just, are we gonna keep talking about it and move forward in the hopes of getting to a place where we actually apply for the grant with these kinds of options versus just saying what we have now is good enough and the board will move on to the next topic.
Is it an issue of, do we have to have a plan to apply for the grant? Or, I mean, is that part of the grant, is providing what we're gonna do with it?
I would think under most grant situations, you would need a pretty definitive proposal.
Right.
Yeah, I am a little bit confused by hearing that, things aren't being done, because I don't feel like that is the case. There are a lot of components being done. The other components, if you told me that this, and you guys made a motion to get something done and told me what money to use, I would get it done. We looked up the grant. We found out it can be applied for this spring. I said I, would be prepared to do so. We would flesh out these kinds of items to submit in the grant, and then depending on the award and if we were successful in which areas they approved, move forward. Unless you decide tonight that there's something like you're saying that needs to be done, then approve it and tell me where to take the money from.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, I know that I've been accused lately of being against school safety, and that's 100% not true. But I look at where, again, I go back to what we did with the new elementary and where we were 4 years ago, and that building, and we had numerous safety discussions, and the building we put together, the playground we put together, I think is immensely safer than where we were. And so I feel like we have made an immense amount of progress in school safety. And it comes down to, I guess, a threat assessment to me. And the threats that are being described, Chase, the ones that concern you, I get that. You have a different perspective on those types of threats than I do. Those are just, they don't rank as high. I think there's other things that we need to spend our money on and our attention on. But it's hard for me to say, I'm against something if you're going to come in with grant funding, because, that doesn't probably make much sense on my part. But I don't think this is a good idea for us to move forward with if we have to utilize district funds for, because I think there's greater needs, there's greater threats. Talking about the release situation, those are things that I think we can implement and have a greater outcome than the risks. And I get they're not zero. It's never going to be zero. There's always a risk that there will be gun violence. There's always a risk that somebody will try to drive through the fence. I get that they're not zero, but in my mind, those are not our greatest threats and are not our greatest risks. And so when I look at the playground, when I look at the school, I obviously have a good part in that, and I feel comfortable that we made immense improvement. I get it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but we also need our kids to go and feel, like they're not entering a battleground, or they're not entering a prison gate system. I want the kids to, the aesthetics of having an open playground, but now it's protected on 3 sides instead of just on 1 side. So like I said, I understand everybody has a different perspective on the threats and the risks and what we do. I just don't think this is what we need to focus our attention on.
So Jason, you said a couple things that need clarification. The motion is contingent on grant funds. You said just now that if grant's paying for it, then you don't have an issue with it. You
Who's
do
gonna
have an
write
issue
the
with
grant?
District paying for it.
Who's gonna write the grant?
For our administration that does a great job at writing grants.
Okay, but you think that grant in the scheme of things that she has on her plate to accomplish day in and day out, do you prioritize that grant over, say, those other things? There's only so many hours in the day, and it takes.
Yes, yes. Every day, all day, I prioritize safety, because as I said, baseball doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters unless we can't keep our little kids safe out there. We got to do better. Over.
Okay, that was one. What was your other one?
Those comments about all those things that you wanted to accomplish being aesthetic, not being a prison yard, that's what this plan is. It's a compromise. It's exactly what that is. Those blocks are real nice. They're aesthetic and they serve dual purposes. That's what I'm confused by too, is we're not doing a wall. We're not doing a prison yard. We're doing something that's better. We're improving our security footprint on that wall. Over.
I have a new link.
Phone.
Oh.
I've got a new link.
No, it really didn't.
We really don't want to hear.
Did he hang up? Oh, here he is. Hi.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. And he's sending you a new link right now. But one thing I'd like to add that came out of our most recent safety assessment that was done by Homeland Security. We just had Randy here, who's an incredible school safety expert this fall. And one of the biggest physical safety aspects that he pointed out that we need to improve is with our high school entrance. So if we're talking about major school safety overhaul, the front office should have sight of the front doors. So if, this is determined to be a priority for us to work on and for grant writing this spring, then I want to make sure that we consider that component as well. Because I think that was, if I'm remembering right, I just refreshed on the report even earlier today. That was one of the biggest components that he pointed out.
Yeah, in my mind, we put all that we identified as a comprehensive safety plan into this next safety grant. I think we do it all as much as that we can. And then that way we can look the community in the eye and said, we did our best to make our school the safest it could be within our abilities. Over.
Okay, is there any more discussion?
Just thank you for putting it together.
Any more public comment on the item?
You have a link if you want to jump on there.
Okay.
Chase.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Aye. Motion passes 3-2. Okay, I am going to, just Jeremy and Ed, are you all right if I bump the Pepsi guys in front of you real quick?
I say we make.
I hate to make.
I say we make them arm wrestle.
You guys, you carry through it.
You're all right?
I'm good.
Okay, all right, well, appreciate that.
He's been here this long.
We've been here, I might as well hear everything.
All right.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
The additional bus stop process and transportation contract negotiations. Susie, do you want to give a brief rundown on?
Yes, so I'm in the right spot here. As we talked through the transportation committee meeting, I got more information after that. And that's when we determined that we have a few more steps to put in place here for the bus stop. So I've requested that we receive a new submission for a full-time bus stop at 20 Trailhead View Drive, which would mean that families could utilize that morning and afternoon. That is a requirement of the state in order to put a bus stop in place. Understanding that this is a need and specifically for a certain day of the week and everything, and for safety for those students, trying to figure out how to make it work within the law. I was working with Donnell Rosenthaler at OPI on this. And so what we would need to do is submit that as a full-time bus stop. And as we talked about previously, and I got a draft memorandum of understanding that we would need to have with the church to use that parking lot as a stop, that we would need to have agreement with them on. And then if this stop was being used regularly, that would also mean we need to add it to our transportation form that we're required to submit to OPI that Casey does, so that we can get reimbursement for the miles and therefore add to open negotiations, contract negotiations with Jeremy Rice, so that we can add that mileage to his contract and pay him. So a few more steps than we had originally thought. And so just wanting to see if you were ready, if you want to vote to approve this process to take place and open contract negotiations.
I guess I'm gonna go first on this one. Because of the way this has come before us in the process, again, I don't think this is the right time of the year to do this. I think changing bus stops is something that, historically we have done, during the summertime essentially. And once that bus stop route is sent out for the school year, I really think we need to stick with that. Again, talked about at the committee meeting, I think we start a domino effect of potential problems when we start changing these types of things mid-year for, I guess the reasons that this really came up. And I just don't think it's the right thing for us as a board to do. I think we need to stick with the school bus stop route that we have in place for the year. And when we get through the year, when it's time to look at this again for changing routes, based on population changes or whatever, Jeremy brings forth at that point that he's discovered in his routes and what he proposes, I think that's the right time and the right place to make that happen.
Yeah, when it was discussed at the committee meeting, it was discussed as more of a one time a week activity stop. It wasn't discussed as a regular stop. I don't know if there's a need. Is there a need regular stop? I mean, you got Eleanor Manor right there.
Yeah, you have the manor there. We have no other request for Sanctuary Loop at this point.
And so how many kids on a given day, excluding Wednesdays, would be stopping at the Eleanor Manor stop?
We have one right now.
Okay.
On occasion, up to 3, but that's the most we've had there. But 1 consistently.
So really, it doesn't, I mean, the logistical side of it and the negotiation side of it is what makes it complicated. It's not that we actually have 10 students coming from Eleanor Manor walking over to Trailhead. It's you got potentially 30 students on a Wednesday walking from Eleanor to Trailhead.
Yeah, and on the school bus routes, it has to be home to school and school to home.
So how would that work even on, if you had Trailhead as a home stop and there's no students needing that stop, how would we red face test that?
Well, I guess that comes back to him and how, what he proposes as far as the routes. And based on,
Yeah, I mean, that Jason's got a good point. If we had a student that needed actually a loop, then it would be home to school to home. Right now, it's not really considered that. So it's a request that was made for normal traffic stop, or traffic stop, geez. Different gears there, I apologize.
some things just aren't meant to be.
Well, you guys started talking about safety stuff and
Sorry, got you distracted.
Back in that mode.
Bus stop. So that's why it was presented to us and that's why it was brought to attention, and we can stop at Lakeview and that's an approved stop. We have kids there, they can get off and truck it across.
The only other option is to approve it as an activity. And then, we are required to do, like Elkhorn basketball and
That'd be
all
great.
of the other activities. And we do not get reimbursed for them.
So
Glory.
would that be like
We'd be
basketball practice? You'd run an activity bus.
Gym, we, yeah,
I rode
Watson
one of those all the time when I was.
4-H
at the fairgrounds.
She's saying that's what you'd have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
If
order
you
to
open
do-
it up for one activity.
You gotta do it for every activity. Oh, Lord. Okay.
And I know,
We don't have drivers.
in our last, in our first snowstorm there, Trailhead did have transportation needs figured out before the buses left the school to get kids across there, because that's one of the biggest concerns. So I know they're work in conjunction very well with that, so, but.
Yeah,
Yeah, so unless there's,
Up
I
to
guess,
you guys.
a need and or a motion to move forward, we'll just table that one.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
The second one that was tabled was the one south of town. I don't know if that's tabled as long with this one as well. But the homeowners association has agreed to do a MOU with us stating that they will maintain and do whatever. But it's kind of those same regards as, is this the right time to implement an additional 6 miles south when we should probably really sit down and evaluate what our needs south, and is that the best stop for us? But, so.
Yeah, that, I would share the same opinion.
Okay.
about that one.
So good.
Okay.
I don't know, but you have transportation contract stuff, is that everything there?
yes.
Okay, so the only thing me and Ed have really quickly is, in looking for a bus, we figured out that the bus reserve fund cannot be used for anything under 15 passengers. So we figured that out, so that has to come from someplace else. So the bus depreciation or the bus reserve fund can be used for a newer bus, which Ed has been working on. We do have a lot of options for a 15 passenger. We just are gonna have to narrow down what you guys think is gonna be a best pricing for that. But I mean, just like the activity today that we took, number 3, we could have fit all those kids in a small bus and saved a ton of money in the fuel costs and overall maintenance costs for that bus. So there's still a need there. The money just has to come outside of someplace else. So,
In the 15 passengers, that's the cutoff for the CDL.
yeah, anything that's 16 or more is a CDL.
So basically you have to have a CDL to use the bus transportation fund.
No, you just can't use it. It's in state law that you cannot use it for anything 15 or less, because that's not normally considered a school bus. School buses are usually in the range of 20 something and up.
Sure.
So. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything else, so.
So the smaller buses we were looking at before,
We have to come up with
We have to come up with a number. I mean, we can get them anywhere from $10,000, which is something early 2000s that would probably work, but we don't know what the issues are, up to spending 70, 80,000 on a 2019, 2020, which is great and probably last us for a long time. But that's a huge gap in funding and where that's gonna come from. But,
And a new one is 125,000.
and even at a new rate, we can't use the fund.
Right.
But if we look at, on average, those coast buses are what, 6-7 miles a gallon on a good day compared to what we were gonna do hauling those down, I mean, I think the cost is, the risk and reward is gonna be worth it to spend, 20, 30,000 somewhere in there on a decent bus that would serve a lot of purposes for what we do with the district, so.
So even to replace our sped bus out there, we can't use that fund then?
Unless there's something different within the special education stuff, because sometimes that takes precedent, which I don't know that part nearly as well as you do, and how that might work with funding.
Do you think we can purchase special education buses?
Probably with.
And there's something about replacing a bus versus buying or adding an additional bus. So yeah, I think that would take some little research.
Correct. So if we're replacing one of the coach buses, we can use that money.
Right.
Or we're buying a brand new one, we can use that money. But we can't use it for 15 or less. Or buy a used bus as a new into the fleet.
Or replace our current special ed bus?
So.
All right, we'll get something figured out, so we can give you some direction.
We have some good lines, we work on it quite a bit, we have some good avenues on what we can do.
Just be a trip someplace to look at.
Okay.
I'll do that.
We see what these Pepsi guys will do here.
I'm guessing they're about ready to edit
20, 30
the proposal.
They're about ready to go to heck with this school. Jeez.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Okay, we get Chase back. Chase, can you hear us? We can hear
He's
you.
back. I see him.
We good?
Okay, we got a thumbs up.
All right, Townsend School District contract extension proposal with Pepsi Harrington Bottling Company. That's you, finally. Thank you for your patience, gentlemen.
Yes. Well, hopefully, we're not spending any money this time. We're gonna give you guys money.
Oh,
This
we
is
like
the deal.
hearing
So,
that.
I mean, the whole lot that they've been spending and.
We should've let him
So
go
hopefully,
first.
we're a little bit on a better page now. So last month when we came to talk to you, we did two proposals, one for 7, one for 10. And then after Murphy and Jason always talked, they come up with a new proposal just for a 7-year contract in here. So on that one, it would be a upfront $15,000 payment. Scholarships would be at $750 per year. And athletic funds, which is the Gatorade sideline equipment. It's sport bottles, towels, coolers, that type of stuff. That one's up to $500. And then the in-kind support was bumped up to $400. So we did make a little bit of movement on that end of it. We ended up giving you guys a little bit more money on the upfront and then added some more scholarship and in-kind money to it. And then Murphy also included the price list, because you guys had asked for that last go around in there too. Everything else in the proposal stayed the same. We just took the 10-year one out and the old 7, replace it with the new 7.
Yeah, I think the proposals, they got, she, I guess, sharpened her pencil, and I think a lot of what is still on there actually came off of what was originally from the 10-year proposal.
From the 10-year, correct.
Yeah. And again, I just, this is looking at an extension to a partnership and a commitment that's worked really good for the last 5 years. And, I highly support the board that, we consider continuing this contract. And I really appreciate that Murphy and Leroy, did come back with, what they figured that they could do. And I think it's a benefit for us. Looking, obviously I got this proposal, I sent it to you guys as fast as I got it. But, looking back 5 years ago, I was new on the board and I was, trying to do my due diligence. I went through the pricing on the different proposals, what we had then, I got the numbers of things that we were buying, and Pepsi was extremely competitive with what they were offering the school district. And again, I didn't have time to do that today, but I believe that they've still put their best foot forward in what they're doing. with the school system. And so I think it is a benefit and a logical proposal for us to accept.
Yeah, your biggest spend on our end of it was the water, and we did keep that at where we started from year one. So in the last 5 years, we haven't changed that pricing. I think that's, because that's where we know, that's where your money goes, is for the school lunch deal. So we tried to keep everything we could do. I mean, the juices, the Gatorades, that type of stuff, they did go up a little bit. What you guys use in the concessions, what you sell. So you guys are getting your money back off of that. The vending in this proposal is the same. You still get the 15% commission off of everything that goes into the vendings. You guys get that back too. I don't know if you guys have from the last go around, the first proposal, it is quite a bit in the scholarship and the upfront money.
Yeah.
And we just gave you a scholarship check last week, or no, right before I went on vacation. So yeah, so I just got back from 2 weeks. I'm just trying to jump on all this here too. So she threw this on me here, so I'm sorry about that.
I know we've had a really good relationship. Leroy's great, Murphy's great, everybody's great. They work with us. If we ask for anything, they are always there to help support our school. And it's been awesome. P.S. We love the new crow's nest, just saying.
Just saying, good. Good.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cold.
Some guys, it rained all night long.
Yeah, I was out there a lot too.
I was thinking afterwards, why wasn't I in the crow's nest?
I was wet when I got up there, so whatever, it didn't matter.
Yeah, I've heard great things. I think, everyone's excited to continue working with you guys.
Yeah, thank you for your willingness to keep that water price at the same level too, man. You guys are taking a financial hit there too.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that, and we just appreciate that. Also just appreciate the fact that we're trying to keep it in Montana. I mean, I'm happy to keep local business local, and we can, the working relationships are great. And that's worth a lot too. So just thank you for that. So I'd move to approve the 7-year contract extension with Pepsi Harrington Bottling as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 7-year contract extension with Pepsi Harrington Bottling Company. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed.
Does that go into the sound system in the new gym?
No.
Okay.
Possibly both.
Okay.
We'll see. We're getting quotes right now.
I'm looking at the one from 2017 as we speak. The bid, and I'm gonna reach out to them, get some more information and then get a few more.
Is a lot of money.
On the
I
sound
remember
system?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when we did that.
We do have a team assembled for the winter
We just had a few
concerts.
concerts coming up, and we've had some issues in the past.
There is a team on this year.
We got that working. We got that.
Oh, I'm on it. I'm not probably not helping it. You were like,
We're ahead of the game in that area this year. Thanks, Leroy.
Yeah, thank you, Leroy.
Thank you guys for sticking around.
thank you and
Yes,
thank you for the scholarships.
Who do you guys work with for your sound system?
The company I looked at before is Smart Home Systems out of Bozeman. but
Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, we're gonna get multiple quotes,
Because our
so.
scoreboard, the people that we go through for scoreboards, they might give us some better pricing on it.
Ooh.
Or give us some sort of deal for you guys.
Yeah, that'd be
So we can
awesome.
look at that. I can cover if you check into that.
Awesome.
Reach out to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll take any and all
Yes.
suggestions.
Thank you again, both for
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
your partnership, and thank you for sticking it out here tonight.
Yeah, no, we greatly.
You wanna
appreciate
join
it.
the school safety team or, the radio,
Get a side with that.
the radio conversation, you just come on down.
We'll take any and everybody.
Okay, moving on. Approve the superintendent evaluation tool. So we did a pretty big major revamp of this tool last year. There was just a few things that we caught. I know they didn't show up on the copies, but basically all I am proposing is to remove the kind of their subheadings that are in the parentheses. They should have been highlighted, anyway, that was just a carryover. We had about 7 different.
Oh, they're gray.
evaluation
Sorry, didn't
tools.
print color.
Yeah. 7 different evaluation tools that we kind of took parts and pieces, blended them together. And that was just something that carried over, but they don't really make sense where they sit. So my proposal is just to, I just want to remove those from a, whatever the term is, editing standpoint. Anyway, other than that, I don't have any proposed changes, but anything we change on the tool has to be brought before the meeting. So,
Is there a self-evaluation? Like we
I-
all do,
Yeah, so what I do is I do the whole evaluation tool on myself and write pretty lengthy comments and provide that to you guys in advance of the board meeting. So probably at the next board meeting, because you guys are doing mine in January. So at the December board meeting, I'll provide you with my self-evaluation.
Okay.
And then you'll provide yours to Jason.
yeah, sometime in December, I'll set a date that they all need to be into me. I collect them, compile them into one document, so everybody's comments, average the scores, so you can see what the scores come out to be. And then I'll distribute it back. Susie has an opportunity to look at it before we meet that night and then actually go through the evaluation process.
Talk about improvements I've made from last year. So just back to our concert note to finish that conversation. There were issues last year. We had new music teachers with new computers that didn't work with the soundboard and all kinds of complications. And we have assembled a team and we have a whole approach for this year's concert season. So I don't get that look from Daniel again. So, yeah, I'll mention those kinds of things in my self-evaluation. So, yes. And the only things, like a couple of things felt a little bit repetitive, but there wasn't really anything that I felt like we should take out either. Just, I think part of that came from the front page is kind of an overall of all the topic areas. So a couple of those, like the HR, like the hiring stuff is on that. There's a question about that on that front page, but then again, under human resources. So it seems a little bit duplicative, but you can just make comment like already stated, like as I stated before, or just say already discussed or whatever. I don't think that there's anything, I mean, it's pretty in-depth, but I found it helpful last year.
Is there, you said you give it to her that day?
No, I'll give it to her.
Okay, I
A
just wanna
lot
make sure-
of it depends on when you give it
Well,
to
right,
me.
so I want to build that into the timeline so that she has at least a week or so to review it. So it's valuable for her and it's valuable for us to have that discussion rather than just, here it is and we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, we can, I'll have a timeline for everybody here pretty soon. But yeah, she needs to have more than a few minutes to go.
Surprise.
Well, honestly, in the past, that
has happened.
Yeah. They didn't see it till they walked in the room. So that is something that we changed last year. We did give it to her to have a little bit of time. Yep. Okay, so if there's a motion to accept those, just striking out those highlight areas, we'll move forward.
And the NA, I think was helpful too, because there's certain things that some board members might see me doing and be able to score me on. And then there might be some things that you're like, I'm not sure. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen her in a classroom. And so I think that was helpful to add to the tool as well. So you didn't feel like you had to put a number on something that you weren't aware of if I was able to perform or capable or that sort of thing on. So, sorry, keep adding things when you're trying to move on, Jason.
I'll move to approve the superintendent evaluation tool as amended for the 2023-2024 school year.
Been moved and seconded to approve the superintendent evaluation tool as amended for the 2023-2024 school year. Is there any discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Approve the amendment to the trustee financial summary.
So we just needed to make some minor changes to the trustee financial summary and update coding. Very technical changes, as you can see there. So our maintenance of effort is the amount of funding that we spend on special education. And there was just a slight coding error on that we're updating, as well as our Indian Education for All expenditures, which over 80% of the schools in the state had to do due to the new legislation. Maintenance of effort is something that we watch closely, and I was trained well by my previous special education directors that, you know, we have to keep that maintenance of effort and monitor that carefully. You have to spend the same amount of money on special education or more a year. And if you waver from the amount you spend, you have to have a very detailed report to the state of why. Like, you can't just all of a sudden cut special education services greatly or increase them greatly, or you have to submit a lot of paperwork as to why. This was minimal, just a slight coding error, nothing that would cause us to have to fill out that report, but we just wanted to clean it up.
Motion.
Move to approve TFS with updated coding as presented.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the trustee financial summary with the updated coding as presented. Is there any discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 All those opposed, motion passed. Personnel, no resignations.
No resignations.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, there's some. reservations
Marley.
in the packet.
Oh, sorry.
It was a late one.
Oh, you snuck it in on me.
No, Christina didn't.
Oh, Christina did. You're blaming it on Christina.
Yeah.
Okay, Marley Wellenstein from
Yes.
the after-school program.
Yes.
That's our only resignation.
Yes.
Okay, if you'll approve Marley Wellenstein's resignation from the after-school program, please.
I'll move to approve the resignation of Marley Wellenstein from the after-school program.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resignation of Marley Wellenstein from the after-school program. Is there any discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Employment.
Okay, so we have a substitute, Lyda Burn. She is bus driver for us. Junior high golf, Tanner Hoff. Assistant boys basketball coach. We have just held those interviews, and it's hot off the press off my phone here. Daniel Herringfield and Devin Zito are recommended for assistant boys basketball coaches. And winter cheer, Holly Smedley, our new school counselor. And she has a volunteer as well that will get on the next agenda.
Move to approve the hires as presented for the school year pending successful background checks.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the hires as presented pending successful background check for the 2023-2024 school year. Is there any discussion?
Who is the other coach? Daniel Herrickfeld and
Devin Zito. And I just wanted to say a big thank you for the community stepping up. We, put some Sherry, we try not to put too much on Facebook as far as some of the business side of things go, but we did an outreach for help that we really needed coaches, and the kids also were inspired by Mr. Patrick to help get him some help so that they could have a good full program this year. And the the community was great. We got multiple applicants and had competitive interviews. So
Yeah.
thank
We
you
have
to the
we have
community for
four
stepping
very-
up.
Yeah, we have 4 very great applicants. Mr. Odell, myself, and Tyler Patrick interviewed them, Coach Patrick interviewed them all. And actually, it's amazing how things just kind of fall and fit and feel good. And we're very happy and satisfied with where we are with everything. And we really appreciate everybody stepping up as well, and the staff stepping up as well. So Mr. Odell, Mr. Patrick, and we just got after it. So here we are.
At what point do you start looking at certified advertisements for the next school year?
Certified.
Teachers, other staff that we know are gonna be
Oh,
resignations or
okay.
vacancies coming up that we need
Gotcha.
to be hiring for into 24-25 year.
As soon as we get resignations.
Okay, you don't start advertising that clearly until you have a resignation in hand, but we have some probably idea that there's gonna be people that are probably planning to leave, right? I mean,
Yeah, we can't open a position unless we have a vacancy. And so
right.
we don't,
What I'm trying to get at is I wanna be on the front end of the
Of
hiring
recruitment
process
and hiring.
the recruitment process
We will-
rather than the back end, which,
Agreed.
Here, shortly after the first of the year, we'll decide whether we're gonna offer a retirement incentive.
gotcha, okay.
And sometimes that
Yep.
will stimulate. at
sometimes
least a
that
couple.
helps. Then we know if we have a retirement position to fill. And then we have already started discussing enrollment numbers and movement potentially within the district, and some of those potential vacancies. So we are in the thought process. Even last year, we started early. But sometimes you have people that accept a contract and then end up accepting a contract down the road. That's what's hard with being a Class B district sandwiched between a couple large districts that can offer higher wages.
We got the 4 day.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed. All right, policy review. So the big list of second reading, unless somebody went back through them and found something they feel like we need to change, we should be able to adopt those on second reading. One fell.
Yeah, yes, the only one I need some clarification on is 3141, to make sure I have your options correct. So on allowing out-of-district students to be enrolled here, I just want to make sure that I have it correct on number 8. If you would like to admit students who have been expelled from another school district or not.
I say no? Yeah. Is that proper to say? Yes.
Okay, so we will not. We will keep it that way. And then one other thing that we need to decide on, and this might be one that we want to table because of this, is on number 11. Oh, here's my quick rundown of this. I don't believe that it applies to us. I don't foresee us having a major issue with out-of-district enrollment. We already allow out-of-district enrollment, and it hasn't been a challenge for us. But option 11 is the sideboards, so that if we do not have the capacity, we don't have the classroom space, we can't hire enough teachers in Townsend, those kinds of things, this is where we can put those sideboards up, so we can say no, we cap our classrooms through our strategic, which it does say in our strategic plan, that one of our priorities is to have smaller classroom sizes. That allows us to turn people away, out of district students away, once we have reached a certain number. So if we want to have the opportunity to do that through that line that we have in our strategic plan, for example.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to worry about this at this time. If you want to pass it without this component right now and see what our enrollment looks like next year, you could always add those sideboards in the future. Or if it's one you want to table and think about more.
Because this is just related to non-resident.
Non-resident
enrollment, right?
students.
So-
And right now, we've been open. We've been accepting everyone without
Right.
tuition. And
But would the board's decision to not accept someone contradict anything here? Meaning if we still said no, is that not good enough, or do you need that actual number 11 or the other things added to also to provide more justice?
yeah, right now we need to accept everyone, except for we can not admit the student that's expelled because we have that on number 8. Otherwise, we're accepting everyone unless we put sideboards up in number 11 that, like, if we don't have the capacity to, or because of our vision and, you know, goal of keeping classroom sizes small, we can start turning non-resident students away.
Yeah, I think we need the flexibility to have that in there.
That's
I mean,
what I
it
was,
doesn't-
that's where I was
It
going.
doesn't say that we're not going to, it just says we have the discretion. So I think that would be a wise thing for us to accept, or leave in there.
And safety and all those components.
Yeah, no, I agree. Whatever,
Okay.
I don't know what, if you need to add an F, G, H. If there's anything else you want to add as far as stipulations, or is this comprehensive enough that it covers those areas?
I think it covers the areas. I think we're good.
And when we actually have a solid strategic plan.
We do have a current strategic
Well, we
plan,
still
but we
have
need
a
to
current
update
one.
it.
We were, you know, we've got.
It
the
does
process of
reference-
Trying to update it, but the one that we had in place would still be.
And it does reference a priority being small classroom sizes. So we do meet the criteria. So if you would like to keep 11.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I needed to know. And then on the second readings, you can do those in one swoop. And I just made note. I went back through all the minutes and tried to organize this better because I didn't do a great job of it in the initial packet.
Way more
So
helpful with
apologize. I
red
needed to
line
I spent a lot of time on a table, a quiet day here to get that done.
I walked in there and there was all seats and,
Yes.
I heard you got put to work.
you know, there was questions asked, yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so the first section for all the ones on second reading, we would take a motion for that.
I move that we accept all of the policies on second reading.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the above listed policies on second reading. Is there any discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passed. Okay, first reading.
I don't know if you guys want to do a quick run through each one or if you had a chance to look at them before and just want to ask me questions. Multi-district agreement is very basic, and underline is the area that was added because of the law, the changes to the law. Recruitment and retention just outlines the flexibilities and make sure the goal of this was just to make sure that districts had it in writing, the flexibilities that are allowed if you have the money or capability to do so. And then the retirement changes that were made to help with teacher recruitment and retention. The changes that were made to the TRS program. It talks about the teacher residency program, which we participated in. That's how we hired Katie Goodman and had her as a teacher resident for a full year. So that's new and added to that. Those are the main differences. And then I would say the district safety one covers a lot of what we've been talking about. So in the emergency operations program, which you guys have seen in draft form before, was also emailed to you today, as well as the rest of the staff with further updates that we've made. We identify our hazards, and do all of these things. We include the threat assessment protocol and procedures. We talk about the school safety teams, and each of those in that emergency operations plan. As I talked with Sheriff Rouser about today, he is going to, he agreed to make it a priority to get one of his officers, and hopefully the one that's going to be the SRO especially, trained in threat assessment, to join that team. So those are the main components. It's just making sure that schools have a safety plan. It used to just be a box on accreditation that we checked that we had a safety plan. And then at one point in time over the last decade, we had to submit a safety plan to the Office of Public Instruction. And this is just putting it into policy, and the underlying components were put into law this last legislative session to make sure that schools have somewhat of a safety plan in place. So obviously referencing that we have first aid kits and AEDs, and all of the basics of keeping the toxic and hazardous chemicals locked, and all of those different components.
Do we do 8 drills a year?
Yes.
No, we're supposed to. I didn't know if we did it actually.
We are going to make sure we meet that mark, and we are excited. And that's part of the email I sent out to the staff earlier. I don't know if you got to read it yet because it was right before this meeting, but describing to them that we've made a lot of progress on updating our emergency operations plan. And I have keys to the locations that we evacuate to, but I am checking to see if they're still working. And I got the MOU templates from MTSBA, and I've been reaching out to the folks that run those buildings where we evacuate to ask if they could come in to make sure, or if I could come meet them there to make sure that my keys still work, and that we have an updated agreement with them to use their site in case of evacuation. And then I think it would be good. We've talked a lot about it. It would be challenging, it'd be time consuming, but I think it would be a good idea to run a full evac and reunification drill. Hasn't been done in a long time. And I mean, it will require parent and community involvement, but I think it'd be good practice. And the communication tools, we didn't get a chance, and I think we're running out of time, so we can do more of it later in a safety meeting. But we have 4 different quotes of communication and emergency tools to utilize. That's something that we've been working on as a safety team. So,
Susie,
yes.
I just want to applaud your efforts leading forward on that. I think that's really good. Over.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it would be a good practice, and that would be a big drill. Yeah. So
All right, on the policies, any questions, specific, or a motion to approve?
I assume you're keeping that optional section on the school safety one on the back page of it. There's a optional.
Yeah, I don't know why that's optional. I think it should stay.
I would agree.
Okay. I think it should be my job to make sure that we have safety tools and equipment. So that is all for those.
I'll move to approve the first reading of the above policies as presented.
Second. Been moved and seconded to approve the above listed policies on first reading as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed. Did you want to talk about that under development one?
Really quick, yeah, I'll be brief. A couple just quick notes I wanted to make. I want to make sure everybody understands that all of those safety components and the communications aspects and evacuation and all that, we're truly all working on as a team. We were all checking on each other, how we're progressing on our homework at our admin team meeting on our homework on each component of the safety plan. We've each been assigned duties. So that was a good check-in, kind of a joke this morning we were teasing each other about. And, you know, Joe's working on helping on the communication tools. Brad's in charge of labeling doors. I mean, everybody's in making progress on each of their components. So just want to make sure everyone knows that's a major team effort. I wanted to note real quickly that on the school-sponsored activities, I did contact Chris Goss and make sure that those edits got entered into our system correctly online. And I'm not sure if they're up there on Symbaloo yet, but he did confirm that he needed to make those edits and was changing that for me.
He'll probably wait till he has confirmation that we approved it on second reading.
On second reading tonight. I told him that.
My guess is that once we do that.
Yeah, and I will send all of these to him and he'll upload them as with the options that you guys selected after this meeting. And with today's date as the date that they were passed. So policy 3100, early enrollment for exceptional circumstances. This is huge. There's a large statewide working group on this. And this is on the shift of thinking about how we support early learners and preschoolers. And it's based on students that, you know, have that need, whether they're at a certain poverty line or they're just not meeting reading and language goals early on. We can see that they're not going to meet the reading by third grade trajectory. So I am excited about this work. We have a lot of amazing teachers that are excited about this. And I know our kindergarten teachers are a little bummed we didn't have enough people interested in the 4K program last year, but have seen a real need for it. So we have a team being assembled at the school, and tomorrow, I'm not sure if it's tomorrow, but at the Board of Public Ed meeting that I will be at for the next couple of days, it is on the agenda. I sent you guys the agenda and I did point it out to our group that's interested in the early enrollment. There's going to be a panel discussion from that statewide group that's going to talk about I think that'll be really helpful in giving some guidance. They've been doing a lot of research on it, some experts from around the state. So I think we'll see what they have to say and get together with our group and continue this work. We don't need to be in a rush. We want to come up with a really solid plan for how we roll that policy out.
So we are anticipating in 24, 25 that you'll have a 4K.
Yeah, the policy, the legislation gives us a few different options on how we.
I guess
we're exploring.
Well, so what I'm getting at is we tried to explore it this year, but we explored it too late. I think if we advertise that opportunity in April and May as part of, even before that, you'll have a lot more interest.
Yeah, we did last year. We did it before kindergarten roundup, actually. And we just
We didn't decide on actually having one until the May board meeting.
No, but they were looking at interest in it.
Yeah, it was like an online survey or something we had.
Yeah, I see.
That's all I was asking.
I see what you're saying.
Doing it, let's make sure,
Yes.
because I've got students that I know of that would probably be interested in the 4K, but I don't think they even knew it existed, so.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And the legislation gives us different avenues to do it. There's some home-based programs to support to help families get started on things they can do at home and all different kinds of avenues. So we've got a great group of teachers committed to putting the work in, and we'll see what comes out from the state committee that's working on it. over the next couple of days. And then we'll all get together and have a meeting. And I understand, we would need to act on it at the February or March board meeting so that we have a plan.
Okay. Principal polls reports.
Chairman, I got a quick question, if I can. Back on that, I won't drag into this, but back onto the safety motion we approved earlier. Could I get clarification as to what exactly was approved? Because I know we talked about whether the wall would be there, what that approval was. I don't know if you have.
Hearing the motion back.
My notes might need to be reviewed. I have Chase Reagan move to approve the safety proposal contingent on successful completion of grant funding.
Okay. So that was to include the flower beds, the wall, okay.
I think there's still room though, to your point about moving it and changing it. It's not like this.
More design aspects, discussion down the road. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Okay, Christina sent out an email, and is that what this is too?
Yeah, she
Okay.
just wanted me to make sure you guys got a copy of just kind of updates on the fifth day programming. And I can obviously speak to it in general. We talk about all the time. You can see a lot going on. It's been very popular. It's been very well attended. I know Christina's worked really hard to put together a ton of different activities and other things going on. We have esports about to start up, and Joe's been working on that, and just tons of learning going on. There's just a ton of things going on. So, I mean, obviously we don't need to read through the whole thing, but there's a lot happening on the fifth day programming, and it's going really well. So average attendance is about 32 kids every day. They've been taking field trips to the U of M. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So it's really growing, and, kudos to Christine for just doing a great time getting a lot of this set up and organized and reaching out to folks. So.
Yeah, great staff. Christina's had great success getting teachers, our counselor there to do the social emotional lessons, just on being a good person, teamwork, communications. But it's so fun. The kids don't even realize they're learning half the time. They don't want to go home when the parents come. So that's the key sign. I heard a lot about the tour of the Supreme Court and just all the cool different things that they've gotten to do. And yeah.
I think the high school kids working it are really enjoying it too. It's been a good thing for them as well, good experience. That's
Just
what I wanted.
question on the attendance, is it, and I know it probably changes a little bit, but is it the same general kids every week, or is it a pretty constantly flowing different kids?
That's actually a really good question. I'm not sure of that. I want to say, I think it's a pretty consistent group of kids that, you know what I mean? But I'm sure it fluctuates to some, but that would be a good, I'm not sure for 100%. Be a good question for Christina.
I know the PLC days, so when the teachers are here, there's a lot more teachers' kids in the program. So probably this is the bumps you see in attendance.
Do we know where we're at on busing numbers? I haven't talked to Jeremy recently, but.
That's a good question. I was just thinking the same thing, that we probably need an update on busing.
Last I heard it was really low.
He used to send me a text every week, but I haven't asked him recently.
I haven't checked the last couple of weeks
I
either.
haven't heard anything updated either. It's been a while, but it was really low the last time I knew, so. Like 3
Yeah.
kids.
Was the number that I
That's the number I knew.
And
The
the
last
other-
number I knew.
the other comment I have, and it just kind of ties into planning and how it all worked out, was with the senior steak fry and the after-school program kids, and then all the kids come in for the steak fry, and then not being allowed on the playground, and just all the conflicts therein, I guess, that were created because of the 2 ongoing events at the same time at the same location.
We talked
Just
about
thinking
trying to
about that.
cancel and move, and we
Just
did
think
talk
about that for future as we have more things. I mean, even tonight, we had K-2 conferences. That's about, I missed the meeting to start because they had K-2 conferences tonight. But anyway, just, that was some, we had some
Logistics.
tears that were shed because they couldn't go play on the playground at the state fry where the after-school kids were playing on the playground, so.
Okay. Any questions or comments for what would be Christina?
Just one last thing I know Christina would want to say is just like, thank you for the incredible partnerships with, you know, the Legion, the Lions Club, Stoke, Teddy Lewis, you know, with pottery has just been phenomenal. Casey loved my artwork that he brought to me tonight. So he is just doing a great thing for our kids, and it's an incredible opportunity for them to get to work with an artist like that here. So,
So, our candy sales are complete. Mrs. Eichinger kind of took the lead on that for years. Mrs. Robichon had done that. Ton of work, but it really goes to a lot of our reward programs and those kind of things. So I'm really grateful somebody took that over. The kids did a great job selling it. Had our Halloween party, the student council put it on. We had over 2/3 of our students attended. It was a really good night. First quarter review, you know, looking through things and just kind of the trends, grades overall were pretty good. I think there's definitely, you know, some students that need some attention, and I think you can look at it and go, there's a definite link between attendance and performance, for sure, something we talked about a lot last year. Which kind of leads me to our grade checks, which in the middle school, we do grade checks twice a week, every 2 weeks. And every kid knows it. I go to every room almost daily, tell them they need to get their things in. And yet it's the most stressful, dreaded day I have every 2 weeks because they don't do the work. And it's my fault or the teacher's fault. And it's really, really frustrating. I don't know what more to do. I mean, I've put it out there and our newsletter that I send out. And it kind of puts a lot of stress on the teachers because the teachers bend over backwards to work with these kids, you know, taking work, allowing them to turn in work. And it's, you know, and I say it all the time, to be an unsuccessful student, and success is different for every student, but to be unsuccessful, you almost have to try in our school because there's opportunities and the help available for everybody. So I kind of this week, I told them all I went to talk to every group of kids and told them it's not my grade check. I'm passing. It's up to you guys. If you want to play sports, get your stuff done. And so, and it's not on your teachers, you know, it shouldn't create more work for them. So that's kind of where I stand on that. And I'm about tired of getting chewed out for it though. It doesn't do his homework and somehow it's my fault. Counseling, just Miss Smedley has joined us. It's really nice to have some counseling and some things available. She's been in our classrooms and is doing a good job. I'm grateful to have her. We will be doing NAEP testing. We've been working, it's kind of a long process. NAEP is a national assessment of educational progress. A little bit frustrating, and then we take it. It's usually every other year, and it's 8th grade. It's usually 8th grade, 4th and 8th, and we don't see the results. It's kind of an entire day. They send a team down that does it. It's a lot of planning. You got to have several meetings with the people. I think the purpose of it is good, but we just, all our results get thrown into a national database, and then we can see those results, but no way to tell how our particular students do, which is, it'd be nice if you're going to go through all that to be able to see how your students performed on it. I have started, believe it or not, first, we used to do, you know, years ago, we used to do a community newsletter and we just write a little paragraph in, and I've been sending out a newsletter monthly this year. And to all the middle school parents, I'd be glad to include.
You did on the one, I think. but thank
Did I send it to you guys too?
I
Yeah.
was gonna say thank you for including that.
Yeah, and I can do that. And I try to list all the dates. The tough part is, especially when a lot of those dates are really fluid, as you guys know, with sports and everything else. And then, we had a really cool opportunity this week. We had Mrs. Hedlund arranged for an instructional coach to come and work in the middle school. And she's same lady, Liz Tuss is her name, and she came and did was that this year, this fall, or last spring that she came and did
Last spring.
Last spring,
differentiated learning workshop with us. But she went into all the classrooms. The teachers were fine. It was clear what she was doing. It was really interesting to get some of her observations on our students, on our school, and just some of the conversation we had. And then she put together on some things I had asked her to kind of watch for. She put together a training video for us that we'll be able to sit down and watch and reflect on. And it was just a really, really good professional development thing. So I'm excited to go through the video hopefully we'll have a little time Friday after our first aid with them. So it was a really good experience. And she's going to come back and work, some of the teachers, it was interesting because it allowed teachers to, if they had specific things they wanted to try in their classroom and have her watch and give feedback on, things whether maybe they just had never tried before or that they feel like maybe they struggle with. And so that was kind of an interesting thing. And then she's going to come back and work specifically with some teachers on, I think December, about the first week of December. So, and it'll be fun because we'll have a chance to go through her training video and then go back and have her kind of give some more feedback. And I feel like it's really beneficial for the teachers and helpful to them. So it was a good opportunity for us.
It was super funny because Sherry and I ended up sitting down with her dad. Her dad was sitting next to us eating at the coach's room at the state volleyball. So he's like, my daughter was just at your school, and it ended up being Liz. Sorry, funny connection.
She was really insightful. I'd love to have her back even more just to work with us and do some workshops for us.
I'd love her to come back to the high
Yeah,
school.
it was really good.
Very good. Any questions?
I kind of half-heartedly joked about the 4-day, but how is it working student-wise and staff-wise? I'm sure they appreciate it.
Good.
Your pacing schedules and grades and all that.
I think good. I think by second semester, we're ready to cut her back to 3. We've mastered 4.
That's something chairman knows.
I have to,
It has been
Thanks for
good.
waking us up.
It's been a good experience, doing the pacing guides for all the teachers. I think they kind of realized how some of them had just been a while and a couple of them had some newer textbooks and things. So that was a good experience, but I think it's good. Interesting observation from my vantage point. I go home sometimes on Thursday nights and just say, I hate it because I'm not kidding when I would say probably 80% of my disciplinary issues are on Thursdays in the middle school. And I'm convinced that, and I have noticed this for many years, when you have a 3-day weekend and you come back, I don't know what some people do on their spare time, but some of them I think sit around and think of things that they're upset about when they have extra time, because it's amazing. But I think in the middle school part of it is just for as far as the student, the parent thing is gonna always be there. I think with students, it's, I asked one last week, I'm like, why are you guys so wound up today? You guys are bouncing off the walls. They're like, it's a 3-day weekend. I said, it's always a 3-day weekend. I said, no, it's awesome. And I think it's just kind of them adapting to it, and I think it's still fairly new, and they are, before Fridays were always my busiest, I had more behavior issues on Fridays, and it was just kids are wound up and, it's the weekend. And now I've just seen that kind of transition to Thursdays, that the kids are just a little wound up, and I think a lot of it's just their age, and, weekends are a big deal for them when they're in middle school, so. But other than that, I think construction wise, I think it's going pretty good, talking to the teachers. It's been good. I've had some really, as I went through their goals with some of them, had some really interesting just things of, that it's just a little different in how they set things up and structure their time too. And not only their time, but their prep time. Like one of them said, I lose an hour. I know I gain an entire day, but that I lose that hour of prep time every week where I got a lot done for the next week. It feels like I'm always playing catch up, but it's just adjustments that they're making. But for the most part, from the staff, it's very positive feedback, and the students seem to be doing just fine.
Same in the high school, it feels like it's going really well, and actually, when we get into things like postseasons where we have tournaments and all that stuff going, it's just like, oh, hallelujah, we don't have to worry about what's going on Friday and covering all those teachers and the subs, and the kids are traveling. And, one of the comments, and I know it's not all about the extracurricular, but I think it helps them academically too, because if they're not missing their classes, they're not, it seems like it's been going really well. I'm seeing a lot of improvements in a lot of areas of the high school. I don't know directly connected to the 4-day week, but I feel like it has some impact on those things as far as, we actually are seeing better attendance in the high school. We are seeing the academic performance for first quarter was awesome, 117 kids on the honor roll. I think they feel like they do have that one extra break of time at the high school level. That's really important. And instead of having to come and do a half day of school and then roll into tournament and they're behind on their homework and they're missing their classes, none of that's happening. They get a day to rest, they go perform, they do their stuff, but yet they're being able to stay caught up academically as well. So, and the same as Brad, there's always adjustments for the teachers ourselves. I kind of feel the same thing, like, why do I feel so like I'm just got a bunch of stuff I still need to do at the end of Thursday? And not that that's any different than any other day or year, but it's just that shift in your brain of, but it is nice to come in on a Friday with no interruptions, no whatever, even if it's just for a few hours and go, okay, I can get this caught up now. That's really nice to have as well. So I think it's going very well in the high school. I'm feeling really good about it. A few things to work through.
So I wasn't gonna talk about this, but I don't want to go off on a tangent. So I visited briefly with the special ed teacher about this the other day. Her concerns that she expressed to me before we made the decision, she said, they are reality. Those kids are having some troubles, They did before when they went home on a weekend Monday, and she said it's just that much worse. It's taking that much longer to kind of get things going. So those concerns are still there, and they did come to fruition as she expected they would. So that's the
something
only.
to look at for maybe some, planning and seeing what we can do to make that happen.
Anyway,
One thing I didn't mention, I just wanted to, we had a awesome Veterans Day assembly. I don't think I mentioned that, but it was, and Ms. Hartman did that. I mean, she completely did that and organized that and set it up, but it was really, I was very impressed with it. And didn't have as much turnout probably as we would like from our local veterans, but hopefully as word gets out that, hey, that's a really cool thing. It was awesome to have the ones there that we did, but it was really a nice assembly.
Lots of positive comments, and people just really loved it.
Great feedback from parents, and there were parents that like military family parents that came, cool. And really appreciated that we took the time. And so the high school students said really cool comments to me about it too. They were really impressed by it.
That's great.
And I echo Brad and Christina worked really hard on organizing that, and it was awesome.
Yeah, and Christina did all the legwork on getting things organized, but it was really cool, and I feel like not only a great way to honor our veterans, but a great way to get our students to understand a little bit of what it was, and get, a couple of the veterans that were there spoke about, wow, it's been a long time since I've been in the school and around the kids. And some of them were really well with the new school and everything too, that came in that way. So it was cool. It was a really good deal, and I hope it's something we're able to continue to do every year.
And they were really proud of our students and the respect that they had.
Students were awesome that day.
Yeah.
They fooled them.
I've heard of that outside of here, like some veterans that attended were impressed with with how attentive the kids were. Like, you come into stuff, and usually these kids are kind of, whatever. But they were actually surprised at how, or at least impressed with how attentive the whole body of students were during that.
Cool, that's good.
The kindergartner made the cutest comment into the microphone I've ever heard. I wish I could remember it.
So cute.
It was adorable. And then the middle school students' letters were incredible. And
Yeah, we
really,
had essay contests and poetry contests related to it.
yeah, it was awesome.
It was really cool. The choir sang. It was really, really cool.
Ms. Heckler.
Okay, so, obviously we're shifting gears and shifting seasons. We've done some coach hiring, all these things. I just wanted to really congratulate, all of our fall sports teams and their coaches. I think, extracurriculars are a huge part of the high school experience. We all know those are the things we remember as high school students, and they're very important. And I just can't, I bring about the teaching staff a lot, but our coaches are phenomenal too. It's a group of folks that just go above and beyond 24/7 to make sure that kids are getting the best experience that they possibly can. And they pour their hearts and souls into it. And I'm just very proud of how hard they all work to make all of this work for our high school students. Obviously, most recent, we came home with second place finish at the state volleyball tournament, which, boy, those girls had to fight hard to get there, let me tell you. So could not, yeah, we had broken fingers, we got all kinds of stuff going on. They were taped together. I don't know, there was a lot, but I can't, again, all of the coaches, but Coach Bliley and her staff have just really put together a really cool program, and they're obviously very successful. And no mistake about it, it was not an easy ride for them to even get out of divisionals, let alone get to that level of state to play in the championship game. So proud of them. It was incredible. And our students were great. Our crowd was great. We had a lot of fun. If you weren't there, you missed out. It was a lot of fun. Also, all of them, the cheer programs has some new life into it now with Mrs. Lamb. She did an incredible job, and boy, they jumped in and just did great. It makes a big difference having that support as well. I'm excited about the new hire for cheer. We can hopefully roll that into the winter seasons as well. We haven't had winter cheerleaders consistently or in that force for as long, and it does make a big difference for all the teams. Excited about the new coaches coming on board. But yeah, it's been good, very busy. With that being said, we had our parent meeting last night for winter sports, and here we go. We're into the next season. Practices start on Thursday, so we'll be rolling with basketball practice. We know that's a very busy season because everything is indoors, and we're all shoved into a couple of facilities and buildings. So we have been doing a lot of pre-planning that goes ahead of that for practice schedules and how we're going to use our facilities and where everybody's at any particular time. So looking forward to how we're going to progress with those. We too are rolling into some testing. We actually have the pre-ACT test happening tomorrow for sophomores. It's not a mandatory test. It's a voluntary test they take, but it obviously is an awesome practice test for the ACT, which they do take as our test in the spring to measure our progress as a school, and we use it for our state test as well. They also use it for colleges and scholarships and everything. So it's a great practice test. I think we have, at last count, Mr. Schnicken hasn't been with us for a couple of days, but at last count, I think we had 12 to 15 kids that were taking it. So that's good. That'll be a good test. And then we'll do our benchmark testing we do in the high school. We use MAPS, and that's happening next Tuesday. So we'll test them in reading, language, and math on that day. It gives us a great, baseline. We can look, we do check it for, are they in the right classes? We use it for a lot of different purposes, just to mark where the progress of our students are. So we have those all going on. We do have CPR coming for Friday, the high school and middle school, most of the staff are going to do their CPR training in the morning. And then I'm excited. I know I've talked to you guys a few times about, we started working in the spring with Gallatin College to see how we can use them. They have some pretty great opportunities for us to utilize as a school district for a lot of our CTE programs and classes to make some of those, more of those dual credit. So I have Jesse coming from Gallatin College Friday afternoon to talk with those teachers in particular so we can get that going, so we can onboard that for second semester, what that looks like for them, what they need to do to connect with the university, how we're going to make all that work. And so we're really excited to finally be rolling with some of that. So looking forward to that. As we were talking about the 4-day thing, like I said, I just feel like performance is going well. We had half the number of students ineligible, 170 kids on the honor roll. I just feel like we're seeing, a good steady rise in academic success at the high school, hearing really good things from the teachers. Yeah, it's going well. I'm really happy with how things are looking so far. Also excited, Mrs. Moldenauer is going to bring in voter registration. I believe Angie Paulson's coming in to help with that, to get kids signed up for voter registration on December 7th, our intergovernment classes, the kids that can sign up to vote. So we'll bring that back. We haven't done it for a few years, so that's going to be a good thing to bring back into our classrooms. And then we just roll into the first part of winter with all of our other activities going on. We have, you guys can obviously read some FFA winter districts going on. The winter concerts are the 5th of December, middle school, high school at 7. The 7th of December is the elementary concert, and we, as we've talked about, we are going to divide it into 2 sections because it's so huge, and just trying to facilitate all those parents and kids and parking, and so we're going to do it in a shift. So we'll try that this year and see how it rolls, if that doesn't help us out with some of those issues a little bit better. And we have some Shakespeare in the schools coming in December as well, and then, gosh, there will be a Christmas time, so. Busy always, but fun. Going well.
Questions? Just in general, I'm just curious, what are we doing to basically highlight the girls volleyball team achievement over?
Like as in it's been all over social media. We did share all of their all-conference honors and wins for those kinds of things. They did get an escort into town, a fire truck and police escort into town when they came home on Saturday, so that was fun. What are you thinking, Chase? Is there any other questions you have? Obviously, shout outs and accolades, announcement on the loudspeaker first thing Monday morning and different things like that. Was there something else you had in mind?
No, just not really. I just think it's so important. It's one thing that a team makes it to state is a huge accomplishment, and then to place, to almost be the champ, man, it's just awesome. And I just want to throw this seed out here because it's just not for volleyball; it's for our other sports that are very successful too. But if we have teams make it to state, do we want to entertain some type of monetary acknowledgement to the coaches that do that, something to that effect? Because as you all know, they're not doing it for the money, and that's not at all it. But man, the amount of time and hours those coaches put in is just mind-boggling for what they do get paid. So think about that.
Especially in the postseason. Yeah, we try really hard to obviously, highlight in all of our programs, and especially the ones that are successful in these particular years where we get a very long ways. So always open to other ideas and suggestions, and I feel like we do a pretty good job. We gave a nice send-off too. That was really fun. A little sidewalk send-off. That was fun as well. Don't talk about, oh no, we're not going to talk about the fireworks.
Here's one that Miss Wiley requested today. She wanted me to release the staff early, like we do once in a while, if the teachers have been going like they always are. So that's hard to say, but going above and beyond, at some week or, putting in a lot of extra time, then we release them early on certain days, and it's kind of fun. Then, announce it over the loudspeaker and that kind of thing. So today she had the idea that anybody who was wearing their badge as they were supposed to, would get released early today.
She's hilarious.
Yes, I told her that we could make that happen. So I went and announced it, that it was on your honor and you had to show a friend that you had your badge on, and then that meant you got to go after the students today. Because we're trying to increase and encourage the school safety badge wearing. So then some of the teachers were sending selfies of themselves with their badge on to me. They're all excited that they were leaving early today. So that was a fun one. And that was Coach Bliley's idea.
All right, Mrs. Headland, your turn.
Okay, so the transformational learning grant, just wanted to give you an update that will be going, that will be submitted in December. And I am still working on many of the components on that with the admin team. Where we're at right now is talking about different ideas, and requested some reports from the state of schools that were successful in receiving the grant previously and have had success in their transformational learning program. So we can kind of get some ideas of schools similar size and demographics that tried some different programs and how that would work for us. Every building is thinking about it a little bit different, what that would mean for them. And just the bottom line is that it's got to be something different than what you're currently doing, a way to offer different opportunities and experiences to students. And so there's some online learning platforms for students that may need a different option. So we're looking at some of that, some of the technology we would need to put some of those things in place. Some of these early literacy programs that we could provide to families to utilize at home to help bridge that language gap before the students come, for example. There's some great programs that you can put on iPads and provide to families before they come to kindergarten. So everything from, like I said, pre-K to high school, more opportunities for what's the word I'm trying to say? Like accredited, something with an outcome, a certificate that the students get when they leave high school. So they have a credential related work experiences, and further opportunity can pay for dual enrollment courses above and beyond the 3 that are free through the university system for students that are on that path, and provide partnership and even FTE, like a staff member to organize more of that career exploration for middle school and high school students. So, and then because Sherry and her team are putting a lot of work into increasing those opportunities. So they met with Gallatin College the other day, Miles City Community College. Ron Slinger, the president, stopped in today and met with some of us. So just seeing more opportunities, and if we can utilize the transformational grant to help staff that and fund that, that's what we're hoping to do. Comprehensive school safety planning, we've talked a lot about that. We will be meeting again as a safety team to follow up on all of our duties and plans for training and next steps for working with staff on the implementation of all those. And then we need to schedule a committee meeting with the board with safety. Portrait of a graduate, I don't think we have time to go into it tonight. Christina, as part of some professional development she did last year, has a really great presentation and grasp on the portrait of a graduate from what she learned at my recent professional development opportunity that I appreciated you guys supporting me, attending. I got to hear from Utah and some other states that have done a really great job of implementing a portrait of a graduate. And it's basically like, what do we want a student, like a product of Townsend School District to be, right, when they leave? So, and we need to have some of that work in progress by the end of the year for accreditation requirements. So we're excited to jump into that. We've been starting the process as an admin team. And then adult education, we can fill that position with adult ed funds. We need somebody to step up and do that. So we need someone to help manage that. It's a part-time, but it's, someone that will be willing to come in the evenings once in a while during those courses, someone that's gonna help organize all of that, put the flyer together, get the instructors the paperwork they need. And so we need someone to step up to fulfill that position. And then also instructors. So I put that in the family letter that went out today. If anybody's interested in teaching a class, if you have a hobby, a talent, a skill, we pay $25 an hour for you to come share that with folks. And then also wanting to take it to another level. I have been talking to the Department of Labor and Sarah Swanson there, the new director, about some of the programs and that they can offer and help us implement. And like a CDL program is one of them. So thinking about our challenge we're having with bus drivers, if we can offer a CDL class and even utilize some of our adult ed funds to supplement that, I think that we might be able to grow our own and maybe get a couple more bus drivers for ourselves locally. So some ideas like that I'm looking into. And I will leave it at that for tonight. I've talked a lot.
Casey gave me a signal she was leaving here pretty quick.
I don't know if my legs will move.
Dang it.
I had one quick question. I seen an email earlier this week from a staff meeting, I believe it was. You guys are working on grant money to get some more Chromebooks, it look like?
Yeah, I was also hoping that in that transformational learning grant, I could write in for some Chromebooks. So we are short on Chromebooks in especially K2, K1 right now, because we spent all of our technology fund on the switches for the new elementary school, knowing that we get the money back through E-rate. But we had to pay 100% upfront, and we're waiting for our reimbursement. So we technically have money in that account budgeted, but we don't have actual cash in that account right now. Am I explaining that right, Casey?
Yeah.
So I am not purchasing those Chromebooks at this moment. They're having to share Chromebooks.
We had this discussion at the tech meeting the other night.
Yeah.
We need about 130 yearly to catch up to where we're missing and then to keep going forward so that we have enough to recycle and trade out. Because we have a bunch that are cycling out that won't be any good after this year.
And what we run into there is the licensing, you have to have a license that they're only good for
5
typically
years.
it started at 3 years and then they bumped it to 5, and now the ones we get, I believe Luke said 7 was the magic number for what they've increased them to. But without the licensing, they don't get updates, and then as these other like online programs get updated, they won't be supported. It's a whole vicious cycle. And so that's why we do have, we have old devices that are out there, but they can only be used, their use is very limited. And then we don't know when they're not gonna be functional anymore on whatever programs we're using, and that's kind of what we're running up against with the devices that are out there. Now, like Sherry alluded to, ideally we replace 130 some a year, and we stay on this cycle, replacement cycle like we have been, but it's gonna take a bit to get caught up now, because we're behind.
Is the priority for those to go to those classrooms that have none right now?
I believe so, yes. I believe that was Luke's intent on it, and then to have spares, because right now we're running on about 10 spares in the whole district. So, I mean, depending on the influx of kids we have, high school and middle school are taking priority at this point, and anybody else, kind of, it's as we replace them, they get them.
How long does it take, you think, to typically fill a PO that big?
That's a great question. I couldn't tell you that number off the top of my head. I'd have to dig into it more.
So we're like a year out just on our laptops. And so that's, I was wondering about it.
We don't have those kinds. We haven't, at least at this point in time. If we put in an order for with Chromebooks, we get them pretty quickly.
You know, I have to ask Luke. He's the one that handles the ordering of that stuff. I believe they're a pretty fast turnaround. I don't know where they are with chip shortages anymore. I don't know whether they've caught up now. At this point, I'm tired and I don't remember.
I don't know that we would be ordering 130 necessarily at a time, and that's something that we're gonna have to continue talking about when we talk about our pot of money. I don't know that a kindergartner needs to have a laptop all day, one-to-one technology. So I have a hard time justifying that when we look at our big picture of funding. Do I think that they should have a cart that they can, move around, or like 6 in the classroom so that those kids can be on that reading intervention program? Well, these 6 kids are getting help with the teacher, and these 6 kids are, being challenged in a different activity to meet the needs of all students, like those different kinds of models, yes. But I don't think that, we need to be one-to-one in kindergarten and first grade. But I'm not the only decision maker here. So those are decisions that we have to make budget-wise as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned.
Now, your homework.
Hey, real quick,